Chapter 1551. Tao Ancestor Wang's indestructible grasp only existed in theory. It was a powerful unlimitless resurrection technique. You could leave a seal by shaking hands. But by being killed over and over again, you could increase your resurrection speed. In the end, you could reach an indestructible state. That is, even if your entire body was smashed to pieces and only a pile of ash was left. It could also be restored to its original state within a few seconds. As expected, the tomb keeper of the heavenly tomb is no ordinary person. I've underestimated you. The grave god stared at the old woman with his purple eyes. He seemed to be deep in thought, as if he was planning something. As long as I'm here, you won't be able to take a single step into the heavenly tomb. The old woman sighed slightly. The next second, the flame in her hands suddenly grew, as if to represent her anger and unending battle intent. The temperature in the air continued to rise. The small lantern shone like a star, releasing endless light and heat. The surrounding space seemed to have been melted, like window paper. Under the intense heat, holes were melted into them. These holes seemed to be in a mess. But in fact, they were arranged in a certain order. The old woman had arranged these holes into a formation and surrounded the grave god. She was trying to burn him with the sacred flame. Since a large-scale attack could be easily blocked by the weakling scatter. Thus, there was no better choice than to adopt a sparrow strategy and launch attacks from all directions at the same time. The grave god's expression was still calm. He stared at the lantern in the old woman's hand for a few seconds and opened his mouth. With a ruah sound, he spat out a golden leaf sword from his mouth and shot it straight upwards. Then, there was a buzzing sound. A golden rain of swords burst forth and rained down densely on him. Wherever the sword energy of the golden sword passed, all the holes the old woman had set up were cut open and disappeared. You can't escape now. The grave god chuckled. He didn't take the old woman seriously at all. Since he already knew her resurrection method. He had already thought of a way to break it. His evil eyes weren't blind. He could tell that the old woman wasn't a normal human. If his judgment was correct, this old woman and the lantern in her hand were originally one body. This was the spirit of the lantern. The other party cleverly transferred the seal of the indestructible grip given to him by Tao Father Wang to his own lantern. As such, as long as he held on to the lantern, the engraving effect would activate continuously, allowing him to continuously resurrect. Perhaps this kind of roundabout behavior was for insurance. In order to prevent this engraving from falling into the hands of others. The grave god didn't expect to be so lucky as to bump into her. Old thing, everything you've done will eventually become my stepping stone. He sneered. In the next moment, he stretched out a finger and wrote something in the air. The old woman's expression changed drastically when she saw this, death's decree. This was an extremely powerful killing curse technique. Furthermore, it was specifically targeted at artifact spirits. The old woman did not expect him to see through her identity. For the past 10,000 years, she had maintained her human form day and night, condensing a body of flesh and blood to make herself look more like a human. Who would have thought that the grave goddess would still be able to see through him? When the death decree was launched, the old woman could clearly feel that an invisible decree was forming in the space. There was no time to think at all. The grave god wrote a string of black words in the air, which turned into a long decree that pressed down on her. The universe shook. A loud explosion occurred. The old woman was surrounded by a ball of black light. The powerful power of the decree caused her body to tremble. She felt her blood evaporating. Not good. Her human form was about to collapse. Under the influence of this powerful law, his original appearance was revealed. You're just a junior in the end. The grave god sneered. In the next moment, he flipped his hand and pressed down. The old woman knelt down under this decree that targeted artifact spirits. She could no longer hold the lantern in her hand. She saw through the grave god's intentions and used the last bit of her strength to try and detonate herself. Although the indestructible grip engraving was a resurrection technique, if one chose to commit suicide, they would not be able to resurrect. The old woman knew that the grave god wanted to steal this engraving, so she decided to destroy it along with the engraving. Unfortunately, she was still one step too late. Just as the lantern left her hand, the engraving on the handle of the lantern actually fell off and flew towards the grave god's hand. Engraving transfer, the old woman was shocked. She didn't understand how the grave god did it. You're no longer of any use. The grave god happily received the engraving. He felt that his battle power was much stronger than before. He stared at the old woman and decided to give her a quick death. Whing! In the next second, the decree exploded and gave off a bright light. The old woman was instantly killed by the decree. She became dust in the universe. Now, no one can stop me from entering the heavenly tomb. The grave god smiled proudly. Then he stepped into the spatial crack that he had been looking forward to for a long time. The pain of being disintegrated by the curse was no different from being executed by 1,000 cuts. However, everything happened too suddenly. The grave god was so strong that the old woman didn't even have time to scream. But in reality, her scream was transmitted to other spaces. In the forsaken land of the gods, the bronze cat sitting on the forsaken pillar of the gods was leisurely licking its paws. Suddenly, the forsaken land of the gods started to shake. The bronze cat's eyes shrank in alarm. He quickly jumped down from the pillar and started to search for the source of the shaking. In the next second, he suddenly raised his head. Because this wasn't an earthquake, but a vibration of the universe, causing the entire forsaken land of the gods to shake, this phenomenon, could it be? The bronze cat frowned. Then, it saw that in the dark sky of the forsaken land of the gods, there was suddenly another bright light, like a meteor, rapidly streaking across the sky. An old woman whose entire body was ignited in God's fire screamed in pain as she approached the forsaken land of the gods. As expected, it was just as the bronze cat thought. This was the resonance of someone's soul being ignited and falling into the forsaken land of the gods. In reality, it was reminding him that a customer's soul was burning, and he hoped that he could save it. But the speed at which the old woman's soul was burning was too fast. The soul had yet to completely fall into the forsaken land of the gods. It had already been completely incinerated in mid-air. The bronze cat couldn't save it even if he wanted to. How could this be? He could empathize with the old woman's despair. As the ruler of the forsaken land of the gods, he could only watch as his customer was burned to a crisp. This kind of mournful scream was a terrifying way of dying that exceeded the laws of the forsaken land of the gods. This made the bronze cat think of a person. Was it done by that person? The bronze cat still had lingering fears. He didn't expect that one day in the future, the heaven-defying evil god from back then would break out of the ground. That old woman with the lamp was the guardian of the heavenly tomb. But she was so easily killed by him. The bronze cat felt that this was very unusual. That evil god's reappearance was a big deal. He had to find someone to discuss this with as soon as possible. Otherwise, the universe would be thrown into chaos, but his movements were limited, and he could only move around within the forsaken land of the gods. How to send this warning to those who were still alive was a problem. Thus, at this moment, the bronze cat thought of another person. That's right. Among all the regular customers of the forsaken land of the gods, there was a guy who left as he pleased. He didn't give it any face at all. This guy was none other than that stupid groundhog. It was said that after changing its body, this guy was now autistic because it was missing an important part. Even now, it was still in a petrified state. This was actually what the bronze cat wanted. Because in this way, it could actually directly enter its soul and communicate with the groundhog. On the other side, Wang Ling was indeed worried about two things. The first was that Leek Sasaki had informed the Rainbow Seven that they were going to hold an upper-class student exchange meeting at noon to celebrate 9 paths and the selection of a 5-member delegation. His head hurt at the thought of meeting people he didn't know again. Then he heard that he was going to bring a magic treasure for display at the meeting at noon. This gave Wang Ling an even bigger headache. He didn't lack magic treasures, but he was afraid that if he took one out, it would blind this group of people. Wang Ling had initially planned to bring his enchanted long johns over. But Wang Ming immediately rejected this proposal on the spot. These long johns are amazing artifacts. Those people don't know what's good for them, so it'll be a waste. Wang Ming didn't want Wang Ling to bring any enchanted magic treasure. Because if he did, it would be letting this group of people off lightly. These long johns had saved his life back then, and he still had an impression of it. How could this group of people be worthy of his little brother's enchanted long johns? Were they worthy? Thus, Wang Ling had no choice but to think of another way. He felt that it wouldn't work, and when the time came, it would be better to let Jinka sacrifice his body. Of all his magic treasures, it seemed that Jinka was the only one who looked relatively ordinary. Inside Wang Zhibao's pants, almost all the magic treasures that the Heavenly Tao had given him were shining, and one look was enough to tell that they weren't ordinary. If he took them out, they would be too dazzling and outstanding. But there was still some time before noon. Wang Ling felt that he might have a better idea in a while. At that moment, Wang Ming had gone to study the small box outside the black stone, and Wang Ling happened to be the only one left in Zhou Daohe's dormitory. He felt that this was a good opportunity to study the Supreme Corpse winding painting. This was a primordial chaos weapon, and when it was opened, it had infinite power. Before opening it, he had made thorough preparations. He had used the King's Eye to isolate the space he was in and form a mirror space. This was an ability similar to a parallel space. If he opened the corpse winding painting here, it wouldn't affect reality even if something happened. Of course, he had hung Jinka on the dormitory door. It was true that the Peachwood sword had the ability to ward off evil, but this was in fact to prevent the powerful resentment emitted by the corpse winding painting from leaking out. These primordial experts had been suppressed inside a long time ago. When it had been opened in front of Wang Ling earlier, the sight of the wailing and struggling white bones inside had left a deep impression on Wang Ling. These primordial experts had been forcibly suppressed in the painting, and because they couldn't escape, they could only gradually grow old and die in a sitting posture, becoming skeletons inside. How sorrowful was that? Although they couldn't be defined as ghosts, it was obvious that their resentment was extremely heavy. Wang Ling didn't open the corpse winding painting to its full extent, which was at least 10,000 li wide. He had only opened a small part, about 2 meters or so, but that dense, murderous aura already assailed his nostrils. What a powerful painting! Wang Ying was also alarmed by the aura of the corpse winding painting, and took the initiative to appear next to Wang Ling. Crossing his arms, he stared at the white bones in the painting. It was only 2 meters wide, but there were already hundreds of white bones inside. How many primordial experts had this corpse winding painting suppressed for so long? Wang Ling and Wang Ying sighed with emotion in their hearts. Primordial experts sounded like very rare existences. But compared with the vastness of the universe, these primordial experts were nothing more than a drop in the ocean. These primordial experts had been waiting for the day when the corpse winding painting would change hands and fall into the hands of someone who wasn't as strong as them. They had been waiting in the corpse winding painting for an opportunity. Gu's existence could be considered a psychological shadow for them. That extremely ugly Dharma body spirit looked terrifying, and was also terrifyingly powerful. They didn't want to be directly reduced to ashes when they got out. But now, after Wang Ling had opened the corpse winding painting to 2 meters, the scene in front of them made some people think that their opportunity had come. The corpse winding painting has changed hands. Here's our chance. A spotlessly white bony hand grasped the opportunity and stretched out impatiently. There's actually someone who's courting death stretching out his hand. Amused, Wang Ying also stretched out her hand and warmly shook hands with the white bones. Gotcha! This skeletal hand was directly crushed into powder by Wang Ying. Sorry, I used too much strength, Wang Ying apologized without any sincerity. Sure enough, with this one shake, the remaining white bones in the painting became a lot more well-behaved, and no one dared to stretch out their hands again. On the side, Wang Ling rolled his eyes at Wang Ying. Jingbai had chopped the corpse-winding painting to pieces with his sword earlier so that these primordial experts in the painting wouldn't be traumatized. When he had restored the corpse-winding painting, he had used his power of sight to erase the scene where Jingbai had chopped the corpse. That was to say, all the primordial experts in the corpse-winding painting now had no idea what on earth had happened. When they opened the painting now, they saw Wang Ling and Wang Ying, two youths who looked like twins. They had thought that their chance to escape had finally come. In the end, Wang Ying's grip instantly revealed his savage nature, and this group of people were so frightened that they trembled in the painting. After a few minutes, an old voice rang out from the painting. Although the voice was also trembling, it sounded very bold. Who on earth are you? Where is Mr. Gu? He mercilessly imprisoned you in the painting, and you still call him Mr. Gu. Wang Ying was amused. This was clearly an old case of Stockholm Syndrome. Simply put, this was the victim's psychological dependence on the perpetrator. The world in this painting was born from chaos, and it can get whatever you want. It's just that it's all fake. This old man was one of the first to come in. I've long since accepted my current situation. The old voice said, but there are also some people who don't want to live in this fake world. I see. Then who are you? Wang Ying nodded and asked. My name is Zhang Qi, and my courtesy name is Zistiel, the old voice replied. Through the king's eye, Wang Ling saw the old man's life story. Zhang Qi, also called Zhang Zistiel, he was actually an ancient godly thief. He could be considered as a weirdo among the ancient powerhouses. No wonder he had adapted so quickly to the predicament of being trapped in the corpse-winding painting. It turned out that he had been locked up many times because he liked to steal other people's things. Wang Ling wondered if it was because people who liked to steal felt like they had returned home when they were locked up in a prison or something like that. So this was an ancestral skill. Wang Ying, then why were you imprisoned? This was in fact a very awkward question. For people who had been imprisoned in the corpse-winding painting, almost everyone had a past they couldn't bear to look back on. Naturally it was because I stole Dao ancestor Wang's things, but this old man returned them after using them, Zhang Zistiel said after a moment of silence. And then you were imprisoned. That's right, that old thing, he was too unreasonable. What on earth did you steal? A lonely woman. I heard she was the king of the god world. Chapter 1552. Wang Ling and Wang Ying felt that they had learned something incredible. It could only be said that in some sense, this Zhang Zizi was also a talent. Furthermore, he was very lucky. Hearing this, the two of them were dazed for a long time. The main thing was that they never expected to find someone greener than Loopy Toad nowadays. There was no need to doubt the feelings between Dao ancestor Wang and the old god. Everything they had seen in the secret room of the Heavenly Dao Magic Cube on Divine Dao Star back then, and everything that had been left behind, recorded their deep feelings. Thus, hearing Zhang Zizi talk about this, Wang Ling and Wang Ying felt even more flustered by Dao ancestor Wang's greenness. But there were two sides to every coin. Zhang Zizi still had something to say about what had happened back then. They weren't married. What this old man did wasn't kind, but it wasn't just my problem. A person and an object are different. This old man stole so many things. Those things were dead, but the people were alive. If they didn't agree, they could have pushed this old man away. Zhang Zizi snickered. As long as they weren't married, this old man was still competing fairly. Furthermore, it was consensual to begin with. After I stole them, didn't I return them? That's sophistry, Wang Ying said disdainfully. Think whatever you want. Zhang Zizi snickered. I still remember her light yellow dress and fluffy hair back then. Unfortunately, it was a cup of green tea. This old man wanted to take this opportunity to warn Dao Ancestor. Who knew that old thing would be so ruthless? Wang Ling, feelings were actually very complicated. Wang Ling had never understood these things. He was too lazy to understand them in detail. There were times when feelings were complicated, and Wang Ling felt that they were even more troublesome than functions. It was like a circuit diagram made up of complicated wires, and he didn't know where to start. Thus, without knowing the whole picture, Wang Ling was too lazy to comment on these things. All he wanted to know was whether or not any of the ancient experts in the painting knew about the matters of the primordial that he wanted to know. Using the king's eye, Wang Ling scanned the pile of bones in the picture. Including Zhang Zizi, the average combat strength of everyone in the picture was at the ancestor realm, as Wang Ling had expected. That was Ping Shiren's combat power. And if it was converted to the number of nucleons, on average, the people in the shrouded corpse painting had 60 cores of combat power. Nucleus, or nucleus for short. This was the measurement of combat strength after the ancestor realm. The power of one nucleus could easily destroy a planet and kill anyone below the progenitor realm. Dao gods were just ants. The true powerhouses of the past were indeed this terrifying. These people were similar to Dao ancestor Wang. They were all geniuses and geniuses that had existed since the beginning of the cultivation world. If they were placed in the current era, they would be famous and illustrious existences. How could there still be a place for those Dao God clan leaders in the God realm? Looking at the supreme corpse winding up painting in front of him, Wang Ling actually had very complicated feelings. That was because in this universe, there were actually many ancient powerhouses. But unfortunately, they were all suppressed. Moreover, the reasons for the suppression were all bizarre. The Zhang Zipei in front of him could be considered a lively person. The other skeletons seemed to be afraid of him, and only Zhang Zijin dared to talk to him. Wang Ling felt that this was a good starting point. You were suppressed because you had an affair, but what about the others? Wang Ying asked. Zhang Zipei clearly knew a lot. When he heard this, he couldn't help laughing. I know a lot of gossip, but can you match it up? We're all skeletons now. My master's eye power can automatically fill in the picture and trace your original appearance. I see. Zhang Zipei rubbed his chin. He had noticed Wang Ling's eyes earlier. He had some guesses in his heart, but he didn't say them out loud. He seemed uncertain. There were also some things that he couldn't say. Following Wang Ying's question, he pointed at the other skeletons and said, his name is Du Juanji, and he used to be a scholar. Back then, he complained that Dao ancestor Wang and old god were dating, and that they might not be able to have children due to racial segregation, so Dao ancestor Wang suppressed them. Later, a lot of facts showed that Du Juanji was actually right. When I had an affair back then, I didn't even use a small umbrella. This is Zongsuan Yenshan, and he used to be one of my investors. Investor. When I didn't have much money, I would pick on a few rich and powerful people. If he wasn't an investor, then what was he? Zhang Zipei snickered. What did he do this time? Could it be related to old god? Wang Ying said. I heard that when he was playing chess with Dao ancestor Wang, he secretly took a move when Dao ancestor Wang wasn't paying attention. Dao ancestor Wang found out. The two of them argued. In the end, Dao ancestor Wang used the corpse wrapping picture to suppress them. According to Zhang Zipei, this Zongsuan Yenshan and Dao ancestor Wang actually had a pretty good relationship back then. The two of them even called each other brothers on many occasions. It was just that sometimes, the better the relationship, the fiercer the quarrel. When it came to a fight between the higher-ups, it was very normal for one's hands to be off target. After listening to Zhang Zipei's story, whether it was Wang Ling or Wang Ying, they were both slightly puzzled. Given Dao Ancestor Wang's personality, after he had calmed down, he should have considered letting the people out again, but Dao Ancestor Wang hadn't done so. Why on earth was that? Could it be that this corpse-wrapping picture could only be entered and not exited? Even Dao Ancestor Wang himself didn't know how to break the picture. Just as the two of them were puzzled, Zhang Zipei pointed at another person and said, Mao Yongqi, this person was Dao Ancestor Wang's #1 fan back then. He even suppressed his fans. Wang Ying was startled. I don't think Dao Ancestor Wang can be completely blamed for this. Zhang Zipei spread his hands and smiled. In modern terms, the cultivation fandom phenomenon was actually very serious back then. In ancient times, there was a primordial ranking list, and everyone in the cultivation world could rank the seniors they liked on it. I heard that Mao Yongqi recruited troops and hired a water army for Dao Ancestor Wang to rank at the top of the list, leaving behind the #2 by several magnitudes. And then they quarreled. Of course. Zhang Zipei said, someone started scolding Dao Ancestor Wang for relying on his status as a founding member of the cultivation world to take advantage of his seniority. And in order to protect Dao Ancestor Wang's image, Mao Yongqi verbally battled with the Confucians and scolded everyone. Instead, it caused Dao Ancestor Wang's reputation to become even more notorious. His image was destroyed, his endorsement was withdrawn, and his reputation was affected as a result. Naturally, Dao Ancestor Wang wanted to settle the score with him. Hearing this, Wang Ling and Wang Ying were silent. What a cruel truth. At that moment, Wang Ling sighed emotionally in his heart. The reason why there were so few foreigners was because they often courted death by challenging extreme sports. The reason why there were so few ancient powerhouses was because they had offended Dao Ancestor Wang. Wasn't there someone who was suppressed because he offended Dao Ancestor Wang? Of course there was. Zhang Zipei said, see. This person was called Xing Jinyang. He didn't have any grudges with Dao Ancestor Wang, but he made a bet with Dao Ancestor Wang that he had a way to enter the corpse-wrapping picture and come out. And then, there was no then. Chapter 1553. After listening to Zhang Ziqin's introduction of the other people, Wang Ling and Wang Ying could more or less analyze Dao Ancestor Wang's temper and character. They were surprised to find that Dao Ancestor Wang was actually a particularly narrow-minded person. Could a Grand Master of the cultivation world not tolerate even a speck of sand in his eyes? Wang Ling was suspicious of this. Listening to all kinds of bizarre reasons for being suppressed, he felt that he shouldn't just listen to these people's side of the story. These people had all been ancient experts who had once commanded the world. After being suppressed in this corpse picture for so long, there was no guarantee that they would be mentally healthy. It was inevitable that their minds would become distorted, which would distort the truth. In Wang Ling's experience, as long as two parties were involved, you absolutely couldn't just listen to one side. If you easily believed one side and were eager to pick a side, then in the end, once the situation reversed, the only one who would be embarrassed would be yourself. Wang Ling had seen this kind of thing too many times in the current internet age, let alone in ancient times. There were indeed a lot of people who exaggerated things in order to attract other people's attention. A while ago, Wang Ling had even seen a female parent who had splashed red ink on her daughter's school uniform because she had a disagreement with a teacher, and said that the teacher was abusing her daughter at school. Why was it that the most basic trust between people was gone now? Wang Ling felt that he should look for the reason in these people. Everyone who consumes generously should reflect on themselves. On this side, Wang Ling was deep in thought. He heard Zhang Ziqin suddenly laugh in the picture. Dao Ancestor Wang's actions are hard to fathom. People like us who were suppressed in here sometimes wonder if we're really seeing Dao Ancestor Wang. I know that you must think that Dao ancestor Wang is the creator of cultivation, and that a grand family shouldn't be so narrow-minded. But sometimes, facts speak louder than words. If you don't believe me, there's nothing I can do. Speaking up to this point, Zhang Ziqin seemed to remember something, and then said, "That's right, you can ask old God about this." Wang Ling and Wang Ying, seeing that Wang Ying's expression wasn't right, Zhang Ziqin seemed to instantly understand something. In that instant, even his voice was a lot lower. "Has she perished?" "Yes." Wang Ying nodded. Speaking of this, both Wang Ling and Wang Ying felt a little embarrassed. After all, the fall of the old god was related to them. Lotus Sun had struck him to death not long ago. The grass on the grave was probably several zhang high. For some reason, when Wang Ling restored Zhang Zipei's original appearance through the king's eye, he saw a deep sense of melancholy on his face when he mentioned old god. Wang Ying also saw this scene clearly. Although he didn't have the ability of the king's eye, as long as Wang Ling activated visual sharing, Wang Ling's shadow could clearly see the scene in front of him. Although he wasn't too sure. But Wang Ying had an intuition that the relationship between Zhang Zipei and the old god might be more complicated than he had imagined. Although Zhang Zizi's side of the story made people think that the relationship between them was just a one-night stand in ancient times. But the expression on his face couldn't lie. Skeletons couldn't make out their expressions, and Zhang Zizi, like most of the people here, had forgotten how to manage their expressions after becoming a skeleton. Thus, Wang Ling was able to capture this scene now. Anyway, Zhang Zipei was a man with a story. There were so many ancient realm experts trapped in the corpse wrapping diagram. Given Wang Ling's temperament, he couldn't be bothered to continue looking for other candidates. His thoughts coincided with Wang Ying's. He had already decided to dig out some information from Zhang Zipei in front of him. "We want to know a few things. You just need to answer what you know. My master can rescue you. What do you think of this deal?" Wang Ying asked. He had thought that Zhang Zipei would happily agree. Unexpectedly, the other party just shook his head. "An ancient godly thief like me can't see the light of day. Whether I get out or not doesn't mean much to me." "Then what do you want?" Wang Ying asked. "My request is actually very simple. If you want to get information from me, I'll give it to you. If you want information from me, then help me look for descendants of my bloodline." Zhang Zipei said, "I've been suppressed here for too long, but I clearly remember that I have 3 sons. If they can smoothly continue my bloodline, there should still be descendants of mine in this world." "Are you so sure they're still alive?" "To be honest, I'm not too sure." Zhang Zipei snickered. After all, it's been too long. Looking for his descendants. This was Zhang Zipei's only wish now. I just wanted to satisfy my curiosity," Zhang Zipei said. Zhang Zizi whispered, "If my bloodline can continue smoothly, I'm sure that the cultivation of the descendants who are still alive in this world won't be too high." "You're an ancient expert," Wang Ying said. "So what if I'm an ancient expert? Being suppressed in the corpse picture, I've already lost the chance to pass on my legacy to my descendants. Even if they can continue my bloodline. Without the inheritance of the primitive orthodoxy, generation after generation will only become weaker and weaker." Zhang Zipei said, "Since your master has the ability to get me out of this corpse picture, it shouldn't be difficult to find my descendants." "Of course." Wang Ying nodded. At this point, the negotiations between the two sides had come to a successful conclusion. Wang Ling had received a new task: find Zhang Zipei's descendants in exchange for information. This indeed wasn't a difficult task for Wang Ling. He just needed to use his power of sight to track the bloodline later. Zhang Zipei knew that his answer was actually a little rude. Because he himself didn't know if his bloodline could be passed on, if there was no one to pass on, he actually had nothing to say. Somewhat curious, Zhang Xipei looked at Wang Ying and Wang Ling and said, "If I don't have descendants, then this deal will be considered a failure." Although Zhang Xipei knew a lot about ancient matters and many secrets, he actually didn't want to say them out loud. This was the law of heavenly Tao and equivalent exchange. Wang Ling also understood this principle. Zhang Xipei felt that the chances of this happening were slim, and it was just a casual request. But at that moment, Wang Ying looked at him solemnly. "Don't worry, my master will definitely find them. Even if he doesn't, he can still help you. Even if I have to dig up a grave and reincarnate, I'll find one for you." A lot of question marks instantly popped up in Zhang Xipei's mind. Actually, he had long since noticed that there was something strange about this youngster in front of him. He had opened the corpse-wrapping picture with his bare hands, and with his strength alone, he had suppressed this group of ancient experts to the point where they didn't dare to say anything. And most importantly, the other party could actually violate the law of heavenly Tao which Tao ancestor Wang had set up. What kind of person was this youngster? At that moment, Zhang Xipei stole a glance at Wang Ling's red eyes, as if deep in thought. It was almost noon on Friday, December 18th. The upper-class student exchange meet that Leek Sasaki had mentioned earlier was about to begin. There was a small forest built into Jodao and High School Trench, and this time, Area S exchange meet would be held in this forest hut. It's up ahead. Following Leek Sasaki through the long cobblestone path, the number 60 high group finally saw the slightly fantastical forest hut, which was built directly on top of a big tree. This was a 1,000-year-old tree, and its base was so huge that more than 50 people wouldn't be able to wrap their arms around it. The branches on it were dense and crisscrossed, and the noon sun seeped through the gaps between the leaves, leaving behind fragments of light on the ground that moved with the wind. According to Leek Sasaki, this forest hut had originally been used as a place for special training. It required the dean's office's approval before it could be used. The Rainbow Seven Suns choosing this place as the venue this time could be considered to have fully utilized the capitalist advantage of Area S students. This was originally a very tranquil place. Wang Ling didn't really dislike his surroundings, and instead liked them a little. Thus, Wang Ming's heart was now full of regret. He regretted that he hadn't straightaway settled Jai Yin 2 days ago when he and Jai Yin had been alone in Jodao's dormitory. The little girl had watched too many TV dramas, and liked to let her imagination run wild. For some inexplicable reason, the scene fell into an awkward silence. Wang Ming had an answer in his mind. But in the end, both answers would be labeled, and they weren't the answers Wang Ming wanted to see. Thus, Wang Ming, who really didn't know how to deal with this matter, sank into silence. This directly caused the atmosphere to sink into an even more intense depression. "Rong-chan, were they like this before?" Leek Sasaki asked Lotus Sun, who was disguised as Ryoko Kwamiya, in a very low voice. "I don't know either." Lotus Sun also didn't know how to answer Leek Sasaki. The main thing was that this was the first time the girl had encountered a cold war between couples, and she didn't have much experience in love. She didn't know how to deal with this at all. Seeing that they were about to reach the wooden hut, Lotus Sun tried to change the subject and change the atmosphere. In the end, Leek Sasaki suddenly said, "Hey, if you quarrel at the head of the bed and reconcile at the end, I think the two of you should calm down. We're about to face a formidable enemy, we can't fight among ourselves, can we? Who's husband and wife with him?" As soon as Leek Sasaki said this, Wang Ming and Jai Yin folded their arms in unison and turned their faces to the left and right. Leek Sasaki, Wang Ling. Lotus Sun, in Wang Ming's view, Jai Yin was deliberately looking for a quarrel. This was all an act, wasn't it? Why did she have to think so much about it? He felt that, in the end, it was still a matter of trust. Jai Yin didn't trust herself. That was what annoyed him the most. On the other side, Jai Yin couldn't help feeling vexed by Wang Ming's silence. She actually knew that she was looking for trouble, but couldn't this guy just give her a way out? What was this silence supposed to mean? It was obvious that he didn't care about her, at that moment. The two of them were vexed over their own matters. Wang Ling and Lotus Sun hadn't expected the situation to actually develop to this point. They had thought that there couldn't be anything worse than the current situation. But Wang Ming's next words directly blew Zhai Yin's mind. Before entering the wooden hut, the more Wang Ming thought about it, the angrier he got, and he blurted out, "If you want to think that way, there's nothing I can do." As soon as he said this, Zhai Yin's face instantly turned ugly. When Lotus Sun heard this, she knew that something wasn't right. "If you want to think that way, there's nothing I can do." This was one of the top 10 sentences that girls hated most from boys. According to the latest ranking list data, this sentence was ranked third in terms of overall votes. Chapter 1554. Zhai Yin actually wasn't that angry to begin with. But the man in front of her wasn't romantic at all, and had actually said something like this before entering the wooden hut, which instantly made her depressed. When Wang Ming blurted out, "If you want to think that way, there's nothing I can do," Wang Ling, Leek Sasaki and Lotus Sun all felt the temperature around them drop a few degrees. Leek Sasaki looked like he was watching a show as he explained to Wang Ling on the side, "Queen Langsan, we absolutely can't say this. This is number 3 in the top 10 lines that girls hate most from boys." Wang Ling was about to ask what the first and second lines were. But Leek Sasaki continued, "The first is, 'I was wrong, alright.' The second is, 'Didn't I tell you earlier?'" To be honest, Wang Ling actually didn't really know where on earth this specific ranking was coming from. However, just listening to these words would indeed give people a feeling of disgust. Sure enough, having a partner was the most troublesome thing. As expected, it was more important to study hard in high school. Wang Ling had never thought about getting into a flashy relationship, and was content with his current situation. Although it was a little different from his ideal peaceful life, at least it wasn't as troublesome as he had imagined. In Wang Ling's view, men and women in love were just asking for it. Why bother? It was actually quite good to be single. At least at this stage, it could be said that Wang Ling didn't have any thoughts about this. Similarly, given his personality, he felt that in a few years, or even 10 years, he wouldn't have a girlfriend. Why did he need a girlfriend? Wang Ling didn't understand. In his view, this was a form of restraint. So, it was impossible to find one. Even if he, Wang Ling, was lonely for the rest of his life, starved to death, or jumped down from here. By the way, what magic treasure did Queen Langsan bring this time? As his thoughts swirled in his mind, Leek Sasaki's words once again broke the dead silence. He was a smart man, and intended to ease the tension a little. The main thing was that the current situation was too tense. Even a blind person could tell that something was wrong with Wang Ming and Zhai Yin's quarrel. She was the first to take out her magic treasure. It was an azure gem that lay quietly in her palm, giving off the aura of the ocean. Chive Sasaki was surprised. He looked over and found that there was the sound of rolling waves in the round gem. These can't be Dragon Balls, right? Chive Sasaki began to display the unique imagination of a Sun Islanders. This is a Sea Kingdom magic ball. It's a magic treasure made from precious crystals from the deep sea and precious herbs. When worn on the body, it could delay aging and maintain vitality. It can also help with sleep and rest at night. Lotus Sun said, "If you can't memorize the book, just put this thing in your mouth and recite what you saw. It has the same effect as the memory bread." Amazing! Leek Sasaki praised. Because he knew that Lotus Sun was playing Ryoko Kamiya, in order to ensure that he didn't slip up, he avoided using prefixes like Ryoko-chan or Ryoko-chan. Now that there were so many eyes, if he accidentally said something wrong, then everything would be exposed. The Sea Kingdom Magic Ball was originally Lotus Sun's trump card. But for this girl who had already seen the world, this magic treasure wasn't so valuable anymore. Its current effect might not even be as good as the white rabbit creamy candies that Wang Ling had given her. But it was absolutely enough to intimidate these high school students on this occasion. For the students who were still studying, this Sea Kingdom Magic Ball was a godly learning artifact. An immortal-grade magic artifact was something that students would fight over, but these things were just toys in Wang Ling's eyes. Some of them couldn't even be considered toys. So what if they were holy weapons or world-defying magic artifacts? Wang Ling could easily fabricate those things. Then, what treasure did Lang San bring this time? Lotus Sun asked at that moment. Wang Ling was dazed for a moment when he spoke. The main thing was that Lotus Sun and Ryoko Kamiya really weren't that different from each other, from their appearance to their voice. Even her breasts had been further optimized, becoming very flat. In this aspect alone, she was already 99% similar to Ryoko Kamiya. He casually put his hand in his pocket. Wang Ling was feeling around for the things he had brought. He had originally planned to bring Jinka along with him. But later, he had found something that was even more low-key than Jinka's. This was a peachwood branch he had brought from a peach forest in the Sword King world. It was Jinka's birthplace. It was also a consumable material that could be used to repair Jinka's body once it was worn out. Leek Sasaki thought Wang Ling was joking. But when he focused his eyes on it carefully, in a split second, he actually fell into a momentary trance. What on earth is this? Leek Sasaki felt that all his attention had been drawn to this little peachwood branch. Although he couldn't say exactly why. However, Chike Sasaki could feel a special spirituality coming from this peach branch. The spirit power flowing out of the peachwood branch was like the hand of a fairy, gently caressing Leek Sasaki's heart. It seemed to be able to completely calm a person's thoughts, and had a strange power to calm the ears. The moment Wang Ling took out the peachwood branch, the atmosphere around them seemed to instantly ease up a lot. Jinka had told Wang Ling earlier that the spirit power and aura emitted by this peachwood branch could make people feel peaceful and calm. Furthermore, it had the effect of reflect on yourself 3 times a day. Now that Wang Ling had experienced it for himself, he finally knew what it meant. This was because of the peachwood branch. At that moment, Wang Ming and Jai Yin had both started to reflect on themselves. They were regretting their impulsive remarks just now. The peachwood branch's ability to reflect on yourself 3 times a day was too strong, and exceeded Wang Ling's expectations. In less than a few seconds, these two people who had been in a cold war and didn't look like they would be able to reconcile for the time being instantly faced each other and spoke in unison. I have something to say to you. I have something to say to you. You first. You first. Seeing this, Leek Sasaki hurriedly led them to the foot of the wooden hut up ahead. At a time like this, he thought it would be better to leave them alone. In the end, it was also at that moment that Wang Ling saw Wang Ming and Jai Yin hugging each other from a distance. They've reconciled. That's great. Lotus Sun was secretly happy. But the truth was that the Rainbow Seven Suns gang members in the tree house happened to see this scene. President. Big news. Come and see. A new member of the Purple Maple Club cried out from the window. What's all the fuss about? Then, following this member's direction, President Moriyama Keat of the Purple Maple Club saw this scene from a distance. Then, he wore the emoji of an old man looking at his phone in the subway. I remember this Lotus Sun, doesn't she like that Queen Lang Sang? Why is she suddenly hugging Wang Xiao'er? I know, President. They all believe in Wang. So, we must have made a mistake. It didn't matter who Lotus Sun liked. At that moment, Moriyama Keat was already completely confused. The rich circle was really messy. And now, it was said that they had all joined the Grace sect. Wang Ling actually didn't reject this behavior of the Grey Sect's fan club. Back then, because of Crispy Noodles' substitute essay, Wang Ling had accidentally packaged him as a little genius at writing essays. Wang Ling felt that this was something he could use to his advantage. At the very least, he could divert some people's attention. He could make those people not focus on his true battle strength. As the saying went, a scholar was useless. What Wang Ling's essay had given him was this kind of delicate, jade-faced scholar skin. On the contrary, it made him even more unremarkable. The people in the Grey Sect's fan club were relatively more cultured and could help him cover up. The main thing was that the cult leader was Lotus Sunday. This instead made Wang Ling feel exceptionally at ease. As for those fake posts online, Wang Ling didn't take them to heart. He didn't need to deal with this matter now. Sparrow could handle it on her own. Wang Ming had already used Old V's identity as the top hacker in the hacker circle to accept Sparrow as his disciple. Currently, Wang Ming had full control over the situation on Sparrow's side. Thus, it was already very obvious who would be the real winner in the end in Sun Shanfeng's scheme. What was more, the Rainbow Seven Brothers now had Lon Lon Lu, the new president of Blue Face Society whom Feng had roped in as a mole. It was said that after Lon Lon Lu joined the Rainbow Seven Brothers, he had privately won over several other presidents. That was to say, if Lotus Sun stepped forward as the head of the Grey Sect and shouted Rainbow Seven Brothers disband, perhaps the entire venue. Sun Shanfeng would be the only one left, thus, Wang Ling was exceptionally calm in the face of the menacing Sun Shanfeng. When Wang Ling stepped into the venue, he saw a lot of puzzled expressions on the faces of the people around him. In the air, the background music of Little Friend, Do You Have a Lot of Question Marks seemed to be faintly discernible. It was only at that moment that Jai Yin remembered that she was now playing the role of Lotus Sun. And she had actually hugged Wang Ming in front of so many people just now. The situation turned awkward for a moment. Rong Rong, I'm sorry. I was so excited just now that I forgot. Jai Yin immediately apologized to Lotus Sun in the independent team's mental voice channel that the members of number 60 high school had set up. The main thing was that she really hadn't thought too much about it after that rush of energy just now. The power of Wang Ling's Peachwood branch reflect on myself 3 times a day was too strong, and in that split second, she and Wang Ming had fallen into a path that was hard to turn back from. And all they could think about was apologizing. It's alright, Sister Factor. If you and Brother Ming can make up, that's really good, Lotus Sun replied. I'm sorry, it's my fault. Jai Yin didn't know what to do. Come to think of it, this could also be considered an undercover mission. It was very different from the kind of life and death special forces operations she had carried out before. And for a moment, Jai Yin really didn't have any ideas on how to deal with the situation in front of her. Lotus Sun realized that Jai Yin was in fact a straight woman who was straightforward and didn't like to beat around the bush. She felt that this was probably one of the main reasons why Wang Ming liked Jai Yin. Sister Factor, it's good that you can relax a little. Follow my instructions from now on. Then what should I do next? I think you should let go of Brother Little Ming first. Lotus Sun gave an awkward but polite smile. After saying this, Jai Yin and Wang Ming reacted like birds startled by the mere twang of a bow. Lotus Sun couldn't help laughing in her heart. The quarrel had been sudden, and they had made up just as quickly. Was this what it felt like to be lovers? Lotus Sun was happy for the two of them, but at the same time she was a little envious. Wang Ling watched this scene from a distance, his face as unadorned as ever, devoid of any emotion. He couldn't see any emotion. The peach tree branches, self-reflection 3 times a day, power had been the lubricant for the two of them to reconcile. But when it came down to it, Wang Ming and Jai Yin actually didn't want to quarrel. That was why they had made up so quickly. According to Jinka's explanation, it was said that the fiercer the quarrel, the stronger the effect of self-reflection 3 times a day. If Wang Ming and Jia Yin had really quarreled to the point where they would have had to fight, at that time, the two of them probably wouldn't have just hugged each other in front of the tree house. Instead, they would have directly knelt down and kowtowed to each other. At this thought, Wang Ling couldn't help trembling. This scene was too strange. Kowtowing to each other, wasn't that like bowing to heaven and earth? There was a turbulent undercurrent in this venue now. Wang Ling felt that if he used his peach tree branch in the magic treasure exhibition later, when this self-reflection 3 times a day power spread throughout the entire venue, it would probably be a very exciting scene. While he was pondering this, Sin Shan Qi walked to the front of the venue with a glass of grape juice. He gave his swept-back hair a simple stroke to confirm that his hair gel hadn't fallen off. Then, he cleared his throat, put on an old-fashioned expression, and began the next step in a very pretentious broadcast voice. Sin Shan Qi, everyone. Today is an exchange meeting between our 9 paths and upper-class students. At the same time, it is also a celebration for our 9 paths and the newly elected 5-member delegation. Everyone is a young genius who reached the golden core stage at a young age. Saying this, Sin Shan Qi swept Wang Ling a glance. You're different from those good-for-nothings at the foundation establishment stage. Wang Ling, everyone has cultivated hard for so many years, I'm sure you have some magic treasures you can take out. Today's exchange meeting is also an exhibition of magic treasures. Sin Shan Qi smiled. Then, according to the system's order of drawing lots, the students who have drawn a number will come up and show off their magic treasures. I'm really looking forward to seeing what dazzling treasures our 9 paths and the 5-member representative team can bring out. After saying this, he looked at Wang Ling again. Wang Ling silently ate the crispy noodle snacks in the venue's snack area. It was said that Leek Sasaki had specially arranged for Lon Lon Road to prepare something else. Of all the high-end cultivation food in the venue, Wang Ling felt that this crispy noodle snack was the best. After the system drew a number, the first person to come up on stage very quickly. Although it was a number draw, Sin Shan Qi had actually arranged the numbers in advance. The first person to come up was one of Sin Shan Qi's henchmen, who was also a student from Area S. This young man carried a huge potted plant with a blue and white porcelain pattern about half a meter in diameter. He carefully walked up the steps and placed it on the ground. The magic treasure he was displaying was unexpectedly similar to Wang Ling's. Although the difference in spirituality between this and the peach tree branch in the Sword King world was too great, at least they had the same idea. Unfortunately, most of the people here had never seen the world before. Even the spirituality of this tiny potted spirit plant was enough to make a lot of people gasp in amazement. This is a 100-year-old purple cherry blossom. Someone recognized the origin of the purple seedling in the potted plant. Cherry blossoms were the island flowers of Sun Island. The so-called 7 days of cherry blossoms referred to the short period of 7 days from when a cherry blossom bloomed to when it withered. And the cherry blossom in this young man's hand was of the highest quality. This was a 100-year-old purple cherry. It was a spirit plant that was qualified to be classified as an auxiliary magic artifact. Even in its seedling state, the purple cherry could condense the spirit energy of heaven and earth, which could accelerate one's cultivation. If this purple cherry was planted in a room, it would be the same as setting up 10 spirit gathering arrays in the room. A 100-year-old purple cherry blossom is 100 years old in its seedling stage alone. After 100 years, the purple cherry blossom will grow overnight and turn into a purple cherry tree that will bloom, someone exclaimed. The purple cherry blossom would automatically mature on a random day after 100 years. But after the purple cherry blossom bloomed, it would remain for a shorter time than a normal cherry blossom. It would wither after 7 hours. And the fully grown purple cherry tree would quickly wither and turn back into a seed. These fallen purple cherry petals would become nutrients. The seed would receive nutrients that would circulate. Thus, the purple cherry blossom also had another name, reincarnation cherry. There was a poem that said, turn into the spring mud to protect the flower. This was the most suitable description for the purple cherry blossom. Purple cherry blossoms were very rare on the market. And purple cherry blossoms that had a certain number of reincarnations were even more pitifully rare. This purple cherry seedling in my hand has already passed 100 years. And this year is the 7th reincarnation of this purple cherry, the young man said proudly. 7 round purple cherry. Many people in the field revealed stunned expressions. It was said that purple cherry blossoms were priceless, and the current market value of this 7 round purple cherry was at least 200 million. I'm sorry, everyone. This isn't anything special. It's a pity that this potted plant is over 130 years old. My dad gave it to me, but I haven't seen it blossom yet. The owner of the purple cherry, Sakai Toyonian, rubbed his head and smiled embarrassedly. Our friends from number 60 high who came all the way from abroad are also here today. There are too many eyes. I'm sure that my 7 round purple cherry pod is even more embarrassed. Saying this, Sakai Toyonian also glanced at Wang Ling like Moriyama Kid had done earlier. Then he snorted. They say that Queen Langsang is a mascot, and purple cherry is actually a symbol of luck. Today, I will make a small bet. If my disappointing purple cherry blossoms can blossom today, then I will make a bet with you. If my disappointing purple cherry can blossom today, I'll give it to Queen Langsang as a gift. Wang Ling sighed silently in his heart. What was the point? He wasn't a junk collector. Chapter 1556. In the hearts of all the natives of Sun Island, cherry blossoms were a symbol of holiness and beauty. Naturally, their status was extraordinary. Even ordinary cherry blossoms would inspire respect in the hearts of the people here. Not to mention the 7-wool purple cherry that Sakai Toyota had brought. When he said that he would give the 7-wool purple cherry to Wang Ling, Sakai Toyota knew that he was being a little presumptuous. After all, he really didn't intend to give the purple cherry away. He had secretly taken this purple cherry out of a glass incubator at home, using the trick of swapping a leopard cat for a crown prince. The one in the glass incubator now was a fake. Teenagers in high school were immature and liked to show off in front of others what others didn't have. Sakai Toyota was naturally no exception. Every time he wanted to show off, he would use a fake to replace the real one and show off the real one. After satisfying his vanity, he would exchange the real purple cherry for the fake one. Of course, if his father found out about this, Sakai Toyota felt that he might not be able to keep his legs. After all, this was a 7-wool purple cherry, a treasure with a market value of 200 million yuan. Furthermore, it was the kind that would definitely be sold as soon as it was put up for sale, which was even easier than selling a house. Give it to Wang Ling. That was nothing more than a mocking remark. Even if the purple cherry blossoms were going to bloom, it wouldn't be now. Although the purple cherry blossoms would bloom randomly in 100 years, there was a basic rule to it. It was winter now in December, and there were no signs of ordinary cherry blossoms. As a treasure, the purple cherry blossoms naturally wouldn't bloom in winter. Anyone who knew about flowers would understand this point. Jiao Sasaki looked at him with disdain. This Sakai Toyota guy, his words are pretty. He clearly knew that it wouldn't bloom in winter, that's why he did this. The purple cherry is so delicate, how could it bloom? Jiao Sasaki muttered in a low voice as he listened to the endless chatter around him. But as soon as he said this, the purple cherry blossom seedling in the pot suddenly twitched as if it had been awakened by some sound. Jiao Sasaki thought his eyes were playing tricks on him, but the reality in front of everyone forced him to believe what he was seeing. This definitely wasn't just his illusion, because he wasn't the only one who had noticed it. Gradually, people began to talk about it. Look, isn't the 7-wool purple cherry seedling moving? What? No way. It was December. Such a cold season. I don't think I'm mistaken. It really did move just now. Could it be that we were talking too loudly and were woken up? In an instant, the scene became lively. Although the sprout of the purple cherry blossom only trembled a little before it stopped moving, many people had indeed seen that movement. Could it be the wind? Someone doubted. It's definitely not a problem with the wind. At this moment, Lotus Sun also focused her gaze on the flower sprout. Because she was one with the sword, with mysterious sea, her six senses were infinitely magnified. At the same time, he also obtained a passive skill that allowed him to listen to the sounds of all living things. The sea was an existence that nurtured all living things. Naturally, it could also listen to the voices of all living things. There was no other reason why the girl was stunned. This was because she had not only seen the purple cherry tree move just now. She could even hear the sound of the purple cherry. Lunatic, he moves me around every day for no reason, causing me to have menstrual disorders from time to time. I can't stand it anymore. I want a new master. Classmate Wang Ling. Brother Ming. For a moment, Lotus Sun was at a loss in the small team's independent mental voice channel. After all, not everyone had the ability to communicate with all living things. To most people, Ziying was just a support-type magical treasure, a rare spiritual plant. They couldn't understand what the purple cherry was saying. But it was different if they could understand it. Calm down, Miss Rong. You didn't hear wrong. This purple cherry is indeed speaking the cherry language, said Wang Ming. Wang Ming actually also had the ability to listen to all living things. He could adjust his brainwaves to the corresponding frequency based on the species of living things, and thus gain the ability to listen to all living things. It was just that the sound wasn't as clear as Wang Ling's and Lotus Sun's. There was no doubt that this was a very irascible purple cherry. Of course, it couldn't be completely blamed for this. After all, Sakai Toyota would move it from time to time and show it off. Even in this cold winter, it couldn't escape this calamity. This made this 7-wool purple cherry feel deeply dissatisfied with Sakai Toyota. And in such a public setting, when the 7-wool purple cherry heard that Sakai Toyota was going to make a bet and give it away, it could no longer suppress the anger it had been suppressing for a long time. All living things had spirits. In particular, when 7-wool purpling sensed the faint aura of spirituality emanating from Wang Ling's body, she instantly became even more excited about the idea of changing owners. Sakai Toyota. Evermind Theskandalen. And so, after the purple cherry's final roar that only Wang Ling and the others could hear, in an instant, the purple sapling in the pot grew at a speed visible to the naked eye. I didn't expect it to be a zoo and purple cherry. Wang Ming couldn't help laughing. The 7-wool purple cherry's growth rate was beyond everyone's imagination. President, what should I do? Save the child. Sakai Toyotomi was the only one who looked like he was about to cry. Moriyama Kid glanced at Sakai Toyotani and said, "This is a vow you made yourself. In front of so many people, you better accept it. I will definitely be beaten to death by my father." Sakai Toyotomi's face was full of disappointment, and then he looked at Wang Ling with a face full of anger. This young prodigal son. I'm not finished with him. Guild leader. Hurry up and move to the next step. I can't wait to see the scene of him being mocked. However, to Sakai Toyotomi's surprise, after Moriyama Kid, who had originally planned this exchange meet, calmed down, he actually just sighed. There's no next step. Sakai Toyotomi, ? Moriyama Kid, this is God's will, maybe we really shouldn't have opposed the latter prodigal son. Sakai Toyotomi, in that instant, everything seemed to have started to change. As the instigator of this chess game, Moriyama Kid's quick change of heart caught Sakai Toyotomi off guard. But in fact, this was actually because the Peachwood branch in Wang Ling's hand was playing an important role in the self-reflection 3 times a day skill. Wang Ling's body was now covered in single-use Dao talismans, so in theory, there was no possibility of his aura leaking out. Thus, based on Wang Ling's personal judgment, the reason why Ziying had extended her branch to him was most likely because of the peachwood branch in his hand. Wang Ling was a little surprised. A cherry blossom tree falling in love with a peachwood branch, this kind of story always sounded a little fantastical. But if you didn't know better, it actually sounded a little romantic. The effect was comparable to Zhen falling in love with Chang. When the two spiritual plants resonated emotionally, the peachwood branches, self-reflection 3 times a day, power directly spread out along with the fragrance of Ziying's flowers. This instantly dispelled Moriyama Kiid's insistence on opposing Wang Ling. Sakai Toyotomi was still ridiculing Moriyama Kiid's betrayal in his heart, but in the next second, as he smelled the fragrance of the flowers, he suddenly felt a sense of guilt. He started to realize that he actually didn't dare look Wang Ling in the eye. Because in front of Wang Ling, Sakai Toyotomi actually felt a sense of shame in his heart. He had obviously been scared to death, afraid that his father would beat him up for giving away this pot of Ziying, which was worth 200 million yuan, for nothing because of this meaningless bet. But now, Sakai Toyotomi suddenly felt that if he didn't fulfill his promise, it would be even scarier than being beaten to death by his own father. As a man of indomitable spirit, Sakai Toyotomi felt that he should take on the responsibilities of a man. Although he didn't know why there was such a huge change in the way he thought about it, he didn't know why. But this sense of shame and self-reflection was like a fishbone stabbing into Sakai Toyotomi's heart. A few seconds later, Wang Ling saw this scene from a distance. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done this," as he murmured. 2 streams of tears actually fell from the corners of Sakai Toyotomi's eyes. Then, he quickly wiped them away and walked up to everyone again. Once again, he walked in front of everyone. "I admit that my vanity is playing tricks on me. And I actually secretly brought this pot of Ziying out from home." Wang Ling, there were still traces of tears in the corners of Sakai Toyotomi's eyes. "But since I, Sakai Toyotomi, have made a promise, then I will definitely fulfill it. I will give Ziying to Ho Lang-san." Wang Ling, then, after a moment of silence, thunderous applause rang out. "Good job, classmate Sakai. People who keep their promises are the most handsome." On this side, Sakai Toyotomi had just expressed his stance. Moriyama Kiid also stepped forward and knelt on the ground in front of everyone to repent. "Ho Lang-san. I was wrong. Also, I want to clarify to everyone that a lot of the posts about Ho Lang-san that were published on the internet before were actually made up by me." He raised his head and looked at Wang Ling, his eyes red. "Ho Lang-san, is it too late for me to apologize to you now?" Wang Ling hadn't expected that the exchange meet aimed at him at noon would be so perfectly resolved by the power of that peach tree branch. This was a turn of events that Wang Ling hadn't expected. Apart from that, there was another thing that Wang Ling hadn't expected. That was, everything that had happened at this exchange meet had actually been filmed by Chive Sasaki and Sparrow, and then edited with special effects. They were going to use this video as a promotional video for the Grace sect. Finally, they had used the previously registered account, 9 Paths and the Grace sect branch, to directly post it on Bilibili. Ho Lang-san, Rongchan, Brother Air, what do you think about the content of this video? Chive Sasaki obediently sent a preview of the video in a separate chat group that he had set up with Chive Sasaki. The title of the video was, "Purple Cherry Blossoms Are Actually a Gift to a Member of the Grace Sect. 9 Paths and the Grace Sect branch, welcome to join us and share our fortunes." Chive Sasaki handled the entire video very carefully. He only edited Wang Ling's back, and didn't mention his name at all. He just used the identity of a member of the Grace sect. As for the photos that had been distributed online, they had all been blurred by the Great Shielding Spell, and Wang Ling's appearance couldn't be seen at all. "Well done," Lotus Sun praised in the group. Lotus Sun praised in the group, keeping a low profile is the rule of our great church. You handled this very well. Rong-chan, you flatter me. Chive Sasaki said, but I actually still haven't figured out why Moriyama Maple and Sakai Toyotomi would apologize in front of so many people. It shouldn't be just because they were reformed after seeing Ziying, right? Oh. What else do you think? Wang Ming asked, amused. Of course it's also because of Ho Langsan's charisma. Although we can't see what he looks like in these photos online, that silhouette is very handsome. Staring at the screen, Lotus Sun smiled. Of course. Classmate Wang Ling is the best. Wang Ling, Chive Sasaki, that's right, Rong-chan. I've already received Moriyama Maple and Sakai Toyotomi's applications to join the Grey Sect. Lotus Sun was startled. They want to join the Grey Sect so soon. What's your opinion? Chive Sasaki, I think we still need to observe Moriyama Maple. As for classmate Sakai Toyotomi, I think we should satisfy his wish first. He said that this is his last request before his father beats him to death. Just tell him to be at ease. He won't be beaten to death. As long as he joins the Grey Sect and continues to support classmate Wang Ling, I will definitely protect him. Lotus Sun smiled. Speaking of which, the Grey Sect had become famous online this time. Actually, it was thanks to Sakai Toyotomi's bet that the program's effect had been maximized. In her heart, Lotus Sun was actually a little grateful to Sakai Toyotomi. Now that they had turned enemies into friends, everything else could be discussed. The 7-wool purple sakura had now become 8-wool purple sakura, and its value was a little higher than before. But it was only worth 500 million yuan at most. What does classmate Sakai Toyotomi's family do? Lotus Sun asked in the group. It's a spirit plant farm. We provide materials for a lot of pill companies, Chive Sasaki said. Okay, got it, the girl replied with a smile. At the same time, she already had a plan in mind. That afternoon, when Sakai Toyotomi returned home from school, he felt uneasy. He was worried about his father's scolding. After all, the purple sakura was an important asset for the Sakai family. Moreover, it was an ancestral heirloom. Before Sakai Toyotomi had returned home, he had already taken a healing pill with a certain pain and numbing effect to prevent his father's *SS from exploding all over the mountain. He tiptoed in front of the porch, changed into slippers, and made his way to his bedroom like a thief. In the end, he had only taken 2 steps when a figure appeared behind him. Sakai! Stop right there! A dignified male voice stopped him. It was his father, Akira Sakai. Father! Sakai Toyotomi was so scared that his legs turned to jelly. Son, what's wrong? Akira Sakai went over to support him. Father! I shouldn't have made a bet with someone else and lost that purple sakura. You can hit me. Sakai Toyotomi looked at the man in front of him. Why should I hit you? You sold it well, son. Ha! Just now, the person in charge of Wagwa Water Curtain Group's business department contacted me. He said that he saw your video online and was very touched to see that you kept your promise. They placed an order for 2 billion yuan for spirit plants. Sakai Toyotomi, ? That worked. Chapter 1558. Sakai Toyoto didn't expect things to take such a turn. Everyone knew that the so-called Grey Church was actually Ho Langsang's fan club. Previously, Sakai Toyotani had the thought of joining the Grey Church because of the peach tree branch's self-reflection 3 times a day power. However, Sakai Toyotani didn't expect that he would suddenly think of something. He actually let the family pick up such a huge order for free. At the end of the day, the Sakai family were businessmen. Even if that purple cherry was passed down from generation to generation and was priceless. But in the end, it was only worth 500 million. But now, the Sakai family had obtained an order worth 2 billion and a long-term cooperation. Whether or not this deal was worth it could be calculated with one's toes. That evening, Sakai's father held a celebration banquet at home. Throughout the celebration banquet, Sakai Toyota was not only happy, but he was also thinking about this matter. Huagwa Water Curtain Group's actions this time would have been very difficult to explain if not for Miss Sun's help. Then why did Miss Sun do that? Was it because he had fulfilled his promise and decided to join the Great Church to support Ho Lang Sang? In terms of intuition, Sakai Toyota felt that Lotus Sun liked Wang Ling. But now, here came the problem: what was going on in front of the treehouse at noon? Eldest Miss Lotus Sun clearly liked Wang Ling, so why was she hugging that Wang Xiao? After Sakai Toyotani sorted out the logic in his mind, he was instantly shocked. Damn! It was a triangular relationship. Son, what's wrong? You are the hero today. Why do you look so pale? Sakai's father looked at the pale Sakai Toyotani and asked with concern. This time, he really didn't expect it. His son, who had always been disappointing and vain. He actually relied on this move to win the favor of Miss Sunday. He had secured such a huge order for the family. Sakai Nara felt gratified and moved by Sakai Toyota's growth. He had to admit that this time, Sakai was ahead of him. Dad, I'm fine. Sakai Toyotani said. He wiped his sweat with a hot towel handed to him by a servant and asked, Dad, I have something to ask you. Go ahead, Sakai said. If I know something about that Miss Sun, stop. To Sakai's surprise, before he could finish his words, his father interrupted him. Sakai's father took a sip of sake and chuckled. Although our Sakai family's conditions aren't bad, the gap is still very obvious when compared to Huagwa Water Curtain Group. Sometimes, don't judge something based on your own guesses. Otherwise, you will put yourself in a very dangerous situation. As long as it doesn't harm the interests of our Sakai family, it's not bad to be a fool. All you need to know is that Miss Sun has a good impression of that Ho Lang Sang. That's enough. In the future, I'll learn more from Ho Lang Sang and strive to get closer to him. Don't say anything else, don't make wild guesses, and don't talk nonsense. These words were like a bucket of wisdom that instantly woke Sakai Toyotani up. That was right, many things were just wishful thinking on his part. His father was not wrong at all. Right now, he only needed to know that Miss Sun had a good impression of Ho Lang Sang, and that was enough. On the evening of Friday, December 18th. While Sakai Toyotani's family was having a celebration party, in the student council office, Leek Sasaki was also summarizing the results of this exchange meeting. First of all, the Rainbow Seven, which was the most difficult to deal with, had been confirmed to have been completely conquered after this exchange meeting. In addition, with Lonlon Liu and Ono Tanaka secretly leading the way, many people who met the requirements chose to join the Great Church. Even Leek Sasaki didn't expect this. Kyushin and the high school had been divided for so many years due to the competition between the student parties, but because of Ho Lang Sang, they actually became one again. Now, whether it was the student council of Kyushin or the original Rainbow Seven, they all belonged to Kyushin and the Great Church. Almost all the S-class students had joined Kyushin and the Great Church. There was no doubt that this was an unprecedented event. The Great Church. They had completely taken over Kyushin. In the future, he would use the name of the student council president and the head of Kyushin and the Great Church to apply to the school to abolish the student classification system. This system, which was full of contempt and gave rise to all kinds of school violence and bullying, should have been abolished long ago. Everyone had their own shining points and specialties. Since they were all students of the same school, they should understand the principle that they were bound together for good or ill. Leek Sasaki felt that he had learned this from Wang Ling. Look at number 60 high this time. wasn't it just a tightly united group with the mascot Wang Ling as their representative? As expected of Holang Sang, Leek Sasaki realized that he was worshipping Wang Ling more and more. Although Holang Sang didn't say anything, every action seemed to have a deeper meaning, and people could learn a lot from him. Apart from this, there were two more things that had come out of this exchange meeting. The first was naturally the promotional video for the account, Kyushin and the Great Church Branch, on Bilibili. The gimmick of the seven-wheeled purple cherry blossoms blooming in an out-of-season manner had attracted a lot of attention and led to a large number of reposts. The number of coins in the video had already exceeded 30,000, and the number of views was close to 1 million. This was undoubtedly explosive data. The second thing was the new decision that Leek Sasaki and Lotus Sun had made regarding that pot of 8-wheeled purple cherry blossoms. Because Wang Ling wasn't interested in this thing. Thus, after discussing it with Lotus Sun, Leek Sasaki decided to sell off this priceless pot of 8-wheeled purple cherry blossoms, in the name of the Great Church, and then donate the money for charity. On Sun Island, there wasn't a single student organization that could donate 500 million yuan in a short period of time. After Leek Sasaki made a public announcement using the account, Kyushin and the Great Church Branch, it also attracted a lot of attention. There were a lot of media outlets who wanted to interview him. But Leek Sasaki declined all of them. As a literary exchange organization based on students with an attitude, keeping a low profile was the core of the Great Church. As the branch head, he naturally wouldn't make such a mistake lightly. Everything was developing for the better. Back then, Leek Sasaki had decided to bring the Great Church to greater heights on Sun Island. He hadn't expected his goal to achieve so much in such a short period of time. Just as Leek Sasaki was sighing with emotion from his position as president of the student union. At that moment, Sparrow suddenly pushed open the door and came in. "President, bad news." "What is it?" Leek Sasaki asked when he saw Sparrow's flustered expression. Sparrow handed over a document wrapped in red paper. Leek Sasaki's heart trembled when he saw the document. This was a warning letter from the Kyushin and the Academic Affairs Department, a warning letter. It wasn't that Leek Sasaki didn't expect this to happen. However, the moment he saw the warning letter, his heart was still stunned. As expected, it's just like what little bro said. "I can't escape from the school." Leek Sasaki sighed. For so many years, Kyushin and the high school had been ranked at the top of Sun Island. The school leaders had always attributed this result to the competition between Kyushin and the gangs formed by the students. They believed that only constant competition could make their students stronger. Therefore, the leaders of Kyushin and the high school turned a blind eye to the bullying that occurred due to the environment. As long as the school was ranked at the top, they couldn't be bothered to deal with the matters below them. So what if the students had psychological problems? That was because they had poor mental fortitude. In any case, Kyushin had an elimination system. They could just order the students to drop out of school. But now, the competition system of student gangs had been implemented for so many years. Now, it had suddenly been broken by an inexplicable, gray sect. Of course, this was something that Kyushin and the school leaders couldn't tolerate. This warning letter was in fact a threat on the surface. There were two main things written in it. The first was to suspend Leek Sasaki from his position as president of the student union. The second was to demand that Leek Sasaki immediately disband the Kyushin and the Grey Sect branch. Otherwise, Leek Sasaki would directly drop out of school. "President, what should we do now?" Sparrow asked with a frown. "Just treat it as waste paper." "We can't mess up," Leek Sasaki said. It was as he had said before. Wang Ming had anticipated this long before this warning letter had been issued. What if Kyushin and the leaders jumped out to oppose the establishment of the Grey Sect branch? The solution to this problem was actually very simple. Leek Sasaki and Wang Ming had already thought it through. That was to pull the leaders into the Grey Sect. Chapter 1559. In Jodao's administration office, a middle-aged man whose head was so smooth that it reflected light said. He was dressed in a well-ironed suit with Jodao's exclusive IVE badge on his chest. His mustache and monocle accentuated his elite temperament. On his desk was a business card box with the words Yuki Jun-san. I miscalculated. I didn't expect these kids from number 60 high to be so capable, said Yuki Jun-san. He was the director of Jodao's administration office. Jodao didn't have a vice headmaster position, and was the school's overall manager apart from the headmaster. Jodao had never made a mistake in implementing the grading system for so many years, and the school board's support for the grading system was unimaginable. It was just that Yuki Jun-san hadn't expected it to be broken by a few foreign exchange students this time. Do you think the warning letter will work? In the office, a blond foreign man with blue eyes smiled as he held a glass of red wine. Don't worry, Mr. Holland. I know very well who has the final say in the board. I won't delay it for long. It's just a literary exchange group set up by students. It's over. Yuki Jun-san smiled confidently. What on earth is that Ho Longsang's background? I don't think this youngster is simple, said Holland. I think Mr. Holland is overthinking things. In my opinion, that Ho Longsang is just a pawn. Yuki Jun-san frowned. So, a pawn. Of course he is. Yuki Jun-san said, the real organizer behind the scenes is that eldest miss of Hwagwo Water Curtain Group. Lotus Sunday. Apart from her, who else would have the boldness to directly donate that pot of purple cherry? You think she planned it all? Only that eldest miss would dare do that. She must have used Ho Longsang's name to set up this organization. On the surface, this organization looks like a fan club for literature lovers. But in fact, it has an ulterior motive. But that eldest miss has an extraordinary background, and Jodao can't openly take action against Hwagwo Water Curtain Group. So now we have no choice but to erase that Ho Longsang. To be honest, Holland felt that Wimaki Junson's words were not completely unreasonable. But he had the feeling that Witsuji Jun-shan was underestimating Wang Ling too much. Don't worry, Mr. Holland, I've already issued a warning. In addition, in this year's closed-door National University Rankings competition, I will also plan to make our team lose. Yuki Jun-shan said, as long as Ho Longsang loses the game, everything will fall apart. I think Mr. Mu is a little too confident. Holland frowned. I swear on the name of the Lord. Wimaki Jun-san said, no. I guarantee it in the name of the Dao ancestor. This matter will definitely be resolved smoothly. In the name of the Dao ancestor. Although the Eastern cultivation world and the Western cultivation world have different beliefs. However, Dao ancestor seemed to be the greatest deity that the Eastern cultivation world believed in. Holland sighed, fine. Since Mr. Yuki is so confident, I'll have to go. In that case, I believe that Mr. Yuki will be able to handle this matter. The actual control of the 9 paths must be firmly in our hands. I understand, Mr. Holland. Wimaki Jun-shan nodded solemnly. Then, the two of them cupped their fists and saluted each other. Wimaki Jun-shan, Kyushu. We will never yield. With the Dao ancestors' blessing, everything will be fine. Elsewhere, in the student union office. Leek Sasaki put the old and crumpled warning letter on the table. He had dug it out of the trash can. The main thing was to show the reinforcements he had asked for. And this reinforcements was none other than Zhou Xiang, the language teacher who had worked with Sparrow to repair Kyushu's secret room. Student Leek Sasaki. I'm afraid I won't be able to help you with this. Zhou Xiang looked at the warning letter in his hand and couldn't help sighing. Kyushu has always been xenophobic, and I'm a foreign teacher. So I don't have much say in this. The only reason I can get a high salary here is because I'm good at teaching. Leek Sasaki crossed his fingers and rested his chin on his hand. I didn't ask Mr. Zhou Xiang to help me get the Academic Affairs Office to revoke the warning letter. That's impossible. Zhou Xiang laughed when he heard this. So it's not about that. I know that Mr. Zhou has a hard time at the school, Leek Sasaki said. Zhou Xiang nodded and said, a warning letter is a very serious punishment. You're actually related to the Star Takers. But the Academic Affairs Office wouldn't dare to issue a warning letter like this. So I think this is most likely the school's board of directors. The board of directors is indeed troublesome. Sparrow frowned when she heard this. Things were starting to get troublesome. I remember that Kyushu is a school run by the Kyushu family. The board of directors should be able to handle this better. And my aunt is the sixth wife of the Kyushu family, Leek Sasaki said. You might not know this, but Kyushu and this school are actually the property of the third wife of the Kyushu family. Zhou Xiang said, because of her low education level, she has always wanted to be the principal. Back then, in order to pursue her, the old man of the Kyushu family helped her open up Kyushu. But the third wife has no experience in management, so she found some foreign management team to help manage it. Then over time, the actual controlling shares of Kyushu and the board of directors were controlled by those foreign teams. These words made Leek Sasaki fall into deep thought. It sounded like the situation was indeed much worse than it actually was, but to Leek Sasaki, he had no way out. Even if it's a difficult bone to chew. But this is also the agreement between me, Homolang, and Rong Chan. Kyushu and the Great Church branch must exist. The grading system of Kyushu must also be abolished. Leek Sasaki said firmly. But it's useless for you to tell me this. Zhou Xiang spread his hands helplessly. At this moment, Leek Sasaki suddenly asked, Mr. Zhou can't speak in the Academic Affairs Office, but what about the other teachers? Well, Zhou Xiang rubbed his chin. My popularity is actually not bad. There are many foreign teachers in Kyushu and I actually have a good relationship with the foreign teachers. That's good. Leek Sasaki became excited. What's good? Zhou Xiang didn't understand. Join the church. Mr. Zhou, you can be our ambassador and pull these teachers into the Great Church. This. Zhou Xiang was stunned. This matter. I'm afraid I can't do it. I have a condition that Mr. Zhou can't refuse. Leek Sasaki looked at Zhou Xiang seriously. Student Zhou Zi. His leg. Rong Chan said she can cure it. Chapter 1560. But to everyone's surprise, news of Chive Sasaki's expulsion spread like wildfire within Kyushu and the school. Moreover, the trend was very wrong. Almost all the public opinion was on Chive Sasaki's side. As the president of the student council, who was enthusiastic, positive, had excellent grades, and was willing to provide quality service to the students, he had been threatened with expulsion by the school's academic affairs department just because he joined a literary exchange club. No matter how you looked at it, it seemed like the academic affairs department was the problem. The condemnation of this matter on the internet almost fermented overnight. What's the use of a school that doesn't respect its students, no matter how good his grades are? Ah! Little Chive is so cute. When I graduated from Kyushu, I elected him to be the president of the student council. What right do you have to expel him? Aren't you cutting Chive? You don't understand. Kyushu is now a foreign school, and foreign cultivation educational institutions actually control it. The Kyugyu family actually has no control at all. Kyushu is rotten to the core, rotten to the core. That was the main point of the online discussion. When Kyushu and Wamaki Junzan saw this overwhelming tide of public opinion, they trembled with anger and wondered what was wrong with the world. It wasn't easy to create such a wave of condemnation overnight. Among them, there were two main factors that added fuel to the fire. On one hand, Lotus Sun and Chive Sasaki had planned to organize Great Church members to help Chive Sasaki guide online public opinion. On the other hand, teacher Zhou Xiang, who had accepted the conditions, had set the pace among the teachers of Kyushu. With both the students and the teachers working in tandem, the matter quickly spread. Yes, Wamaki Junzan had miscalculated once again. He had underestimated the overall strength of the Great Church. After the Rainbow Seven gang was taken down, the entire student council, as well as all the students who were dissatisfied with Kyushu and the grading system, had joined Kyushu and the Great Church branches as long as they had excellent grades in language. Furthermore, the promotional video on Bilibili had added fuel to the fire. For a moment, many people were very interested in this student organization that had been established with the initial purpose of literary exchange. Sometimes, as long as public opinion was stirred up, it was very easy to follow the trend. There had always been a lot of people on the internet who would go along with the flow. Since everyone had agreed, then there was nothing wrong with agreeing with them. If everyone was cursing the same person or the same thing, then it wouldn't hurt to go along with the flow and stimulate Zhu An's bloodline. On Saturday, December 19th, Sun Island's closed-door National High School ranking tournament had yet to officially begin. Jodao and the student union's office, Leek Sasaki was extremely busy. Since early in the morning, Chiba Sasaki and Sparrow had not left the office. This was because more and more people were applying to join the Great Church. There were students and teachers from other schools who handed over their report cards. For a moment, the Nine Paths and the Great Church's branch were in an uproar again. In just a few days, the Nine Paths and the Great Church's branch had grown from nothing to their current strength. This was something that Chive Sasaki had never expected. Faced with the increasing number of Great Church disciples, Leek Sasaki naturally felt the pressure mounting. In the last few days, sect leader Lotus Sun had been on his side giving him pointers. When the people from number 60 high went back next week, Leek Sasaki started to feel inexplicably agitated and anxious. In fact, Wang Ling had already anticipated this. After these days of comprehensive inspection of chives, Wang Ling felt that Leek Sasaki could be considered a person of good character. He didn't have anything to offer, so he enchanted something and had Lotus Sun give it to Chive Sasaki in her name as a gift. So that day, Chive Sasaki was in his office looking at the densely packed roster of believers on the computer, and his hair was about to fall. Lotus Sun brought Wang Ling's enchanted gift to the office. "This is Ryu Chan's for me." Chive Sasaki revealed an expression of disbelief. "You've worked hard these days." It was just a small token of appreciation. This was a memory pillowcase. It matched all pillows and was very elastic. Sleeping on it will help you clear your mind. Wow, this material feels very comfortable. It must be very expensive, Chive Sasaki exclaimed. Actually, it's not that big of a deal. As long as you like it. Lotus Sun smiled awkwardly. Of course, she knew that the pillowcase was excellent. If Wang Ling hadn't personally asked her to deliver it, how would she have dared claim credit? This was something that classmate Wang Ling had personally enchanted. A casual touch was a priceless treasure. How many people in the world could only wish for it? Is Holang Sangsan going to the competition with the team soon? Yes, he's leaving right away. The competition starts at 3:00 this afternoon. I have to hurry up and get ready. Lotus Sun smiled. Okay, Ryu-chan. Do your best, Ryu-chan. I'll watch the live broadcast and give you gifts. Lotus Sun nodded, then said goodbye to Chive Sasaki. Farewell, cult leader. Watching the girl's receding figure, Chive Sasaki held the pillowcase in his hands and bowed to Lotus Sun with extreme excitement. For some reason, Lotus Sun felt like she was being possessed by Zhang Wuji, the cult master of the Ming cult. But their Grey cult was clearly just a literary exchange club. The closed-door competition for the national high school ranking on Sun Island was about to begin. Chive Sasaki was busy roping in newcomers, Wang Ling was waiting to win the championship, while Audjua and Kamiya Ryoko were also busily trying to treat Zhou Xiang's son's leg. This time, Zhou Xiang was leading the team of teachers in Kyowa High School, and the matter of Yumiya Junshan would probably be found out very soon. He had chosen this high-paying job to work abroad to pay for his son's leg treatment. Now that the matter of treating his son's leg had been settled, there was no harm in Zhou Xiang throwing caution to the wind. Besides, he had already put up with Yumiya Junshan for a long time. If it wasn't for his son's sake every time, Zhou Xiang felt that he might have fought Yumiya Junshan to the death. This is the place. Audjua drove Kamiya Ryoko to Zhou Xiang's house. This was an old-fashioned cultivation residential building that had been around for a very long time. Although it was in Songhai City, it was very rare to see this kind of courtyard building in the city center. Kamiya Ryoko was wearing a black cloak and had changed her appearance. This was because Lotus Sun was now taking her place in the competition. In order to coordinate with Lotus Sun's performance, Kamiya Ryoko had simply asked for leave from school and hadn't gone to school in the last few days. What Kamiya Ryoko hadn't expected the most was, she had actually been living at Audjua's house these days. Audjua had indeed duped her into going over, saying that she had to fulfill her duty and responsibility as a bodyguard. Although the man next to her hadn't done anything to her. But Kamiya Ryoko still had a very strange feeling in her heart. "Excuse me, is classmate Zhou Zi home?" In front of the courtyard, Audjua knocked on the very old-fashioned riveted door. The red paint had already peeled off, and it looked old and wrinkled. Audjua gently pushed the door and found that the latch on the inside was loose and not completely locked. "Is anyone home?" he asked as he and Kamiya Ryoko entered the courtyard. Before coming to see Zhou Zi, Audjua had in fact imagined a lot of scenarios. He had thought that he would see a very dejected teenager pushing a wheelchair out, dragging a frail body. In the end, not long after he said that, he heard a hearty shout from inside. "Coming, coming." On the eaves, the legless teenager was standing upside down, using his arms instead of his feet to skillfully support his body. He leaped over the eaves and vaulted over the walls, then did a 360-degree turn in the air. Finally, with a bang, his head smashed into the ground. "Classmate Zhou, it's not the new year yet, there's no need to be so formal." Audjua gave an awkward but polite smile. "Does it hurt?" Kamiya Ryoko wanted to help him up. In the end, Zhou Zi scratched his head and propped himself up. It's fine, I'm a spirited little fellow." Audjua, spirited little fellow, apart from losing his legs, there was indeed something wrong with his mind. Chapter 1561. It was a very old-fashioned house, but after careful observation, Audjua and Kamiya Ryoko found that the layout inside was very orderly. The flowers and grasses in the courtyard were growing very well. Each of them bloomed with their own fragrance, displaying their own beauty. It was obvious that they had been carefully taken care of on a daily basis. "Do you usually take care of these flowers and plants?" Looking at the blooming flowers, Audjua couldn't help asking. "Yeah, it's also the mission my dad gave me before he went to Sun Island. He only has these hobbies. For my sake, he is so busy outside. I don't dare to raise his thing to death. You and your father are so close." Audjua sighed. "I thought you would hate your father." "Why should I hate my father?" Zhou Zi laughed. "It wasn't his fault that my leg was broken. It was just an accident. I've seen how he's been running around for my leg all these years." Saying this, Zhou Zi suddenly turned around to look at him. "That's right. I want to ask, are you the real Audjua?" Audjua was amused by this question. "Of course I'm the real Audjua, otherwise what?" No, nothing. Josie quickly turned his body around and continued to use his arms and palms to replace his legs, leading them to the front of the main hall. Before entering the door, Josie's body paused. Wait for me, don't go in yet. Come in only when I tell you to. You're a man, what other shameful things do you have? Audra suddenly smiled again. Before coming here, he had actually already pretty much figured out Josie's situation. He also knew what it was that made Josie nervous and wanted to hide. Josie's face turned red and he couldn't help but take a few steps back. In fact, he was Audra's little fan, the kind who had admired him for a long time. Ever since he had lost his legs in an accident when he was very young, Audra's story had become his only hope. Now that the main body had appeared, he was naturally filled with emotions. Josie never dreamed that Audra would actually pay attention to him. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. We're all men. Squatting down, Audra pinched Josie's dark face. Sure enough, the little fellow's face was as thick as he had imagined. Looking at this scene, Ryoko Kamiya felt a little upset. However, when he thought of Josie's current situation, he endured it all. At the same time, she felt childish for her own thoughts. Josie was a little fan of his, which made people feel that Josie was very cute. Most importantly, Josie was a man. Just now, she actually felt annoyed over a boy. At this moment, Ryoko Kamiya had mixed feelings. She didn't think that she was jealous, but that she was sick. It was all her fault for being too close to Audra these days, which had led her astray. Then come in, but don't laugh at me. After careful consideration, Josie felt that what Audra said made sense, so he boldly stepped aside. When he pushed open the door and entered the living room of the Zhou family mansion, he was instantly dumbfounded by the scene in front of him. The entire living room, including the right half of the wall, was filled with meticulously edited newspapers, all of which were related to him. Audra had thought that the oldest news would have started 6 years ago, when he had defeated the sky-swallowing toad. But the truth was that Josie had been paying attention to him for even longer than that. Josie had even paid attention to the news of Audra's second-class and third-class merits in the army. On the right side of the wall were many posters about Audra, including promotional posters, magazine covers, and posters of some of the movies he had starred in after he had become famous. Of course, the most outrageous thing wasn't what was on the left and right walls. It was the offering table at the very front of the main hall. The person on the offering table was none other than Audra's gold-plated cultivation hero commemorative figurine. 3 electronic candles were placed on the left and right sides of the figurine. In front of the figurine was a full spread of tributes, including peaches, bananas, and a whole fragrant braised pig's head. Looking at this scene, Ryoko Kamiya tried hard not to laugh out loud. Audra being worshipped at home was something she had never expected at all. Are you happy? Touched? Ryoko Kamiya really wanted to ask Audra this question now. As an outsider, she naturally only felt that it was funny. But Audra was different. To be honest, when he saw all this, his heart was deeply moved. A child who had lost both his legs at a very young age hadn't been defeated by such an ordeal, but had instead been able to live bravely and optimistically. In some sense, Audra felt that Josie possessed a kind of courage that ordinary children didn't have. Just like 6 years ago, he had flashed his spirit sword and charged to the front line even though he knew he was no match for Audra. Audra thought he would laugh out loud, but the truth was that after seeing all this, apart from being moved, he felt even more respect. He took a few steps forward, picked up the incense sticks on the table, and lit them with spirit flames from his fingertips. Then, he bowed to his figurine and firmly inserted the 3 incense sticks into the censer with boundless emotion in his heart. Ryoko Kamiya and Josie couldn't take it anymore at this scene. Both of them burst into laughter at the same time. Audra rolled his eyes and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. You're telling me not to laugh, but you're smiling so brightly yourself. Josie wiped his tears. Well, Mr. Joie, you can't blame me. I respect you very much. But how can you worship yourself? This is too funny. Audra picked up Josie with one hand and straightened him out like he was a little chick, then directly carried him on his shoulder. Josie's face instantly turned red. Mr. Joie, put me down. Audra neatly put the youngster on his shoulder down on a nearby chair, then he and Ryoko each found a chair to sit down in. Josie still hadn't reacted to the fact that the person he had admired for a long time had suddenly carried him and placed him on a chair. He didn't lack concern, because he knew that in this world, his father was the person who cared about him the most. Zhou Xiang worked abroad all year round. But the hearts of father and son had always been connected. He worked hard to make himself obedient and strong, and even if he didn't have legs, he still lived a positive life. But the moment Audra picked him up just now, he suddenly felt that he had a very powerful backer behind him. Mr. Joie. Josie's emotions were complicated and at the same time very excited, and he didn't know what to say. At that moment, Audra stared at Josie and smiled. Don't call me Mr. Joie, it's treating me like an outsider. You're a student of Sword God Academy, so I'm also your senior. Senior. When I was studying at number 60 high, I was lucky enough to study at Sword God Academy for a while. But that was a long time ago. Audra said, just call me senior from now on. I see. Josie's eyes lit up and his face was full of joy. Okay, senior. Next, let's talk about your legs, Audra said. My dad said that you can install the latest smart prosthetic legs on me. Is that true? Those things are very expensive. I heard that they cost 100 million each. Smart prosthetic legs worth hundreds of millions. Audra raised his eyebrows and sighed. I think your father might have misunderstood something. Like I said, my dad is overthinking things. 100 million for a leg, how could it be mine? Josie smiled bitterly. No, classmate Joe, why don't you understand? At that moment, Audra said, smart prosthetic legs are good, but they actually aren't as good as real legs. Don't tell me it's a real leg transplant. Josie was startled. But the doctor already said that my legs are past the best transplant period. A transplant is too low. I can also do this surgery. If you want a transplant, I can help you become ergot. It's fine even if you have a few more legs. What I'm talking to you about now isn't prosthetic legs, let alone a so-called transplant. At that moment, Audra looked up at the youngster in front of him with a serious expression on his face. I'm talking about growing your legs back. Do you see the flowers and plants in your yard? This broken leg can also be planted. Audra was overjoyed. The more he looked at Josie, the more he liked him. This young man had a bright future ahead of him. He knew how to read people's expressions. But there was one thing he didn't quite understand, so he asked, I don't think I've ever told you that she's your sister-in-law, right? Why would you think that? Ah. So she isn't, it seems I was rude. I'm sorry, Brother Joie. Josie scratched the back of his head in embarrassment. I'm actually very sensitive to smell. I actually sensed it the moment you walked in. The shampoo and body wash you use all smell the same. This means that you two are living together. Then if she's living together, she could be my little sister, right? Audra laughed. No. It can't be your little sister. Sister-in-law clearly looks at Brother Joie differently. What little sister would get jealous? Josie said in a low voice. You think she's jealous? A little, Josie nodded. But is she sister-in-law or not? Audra rubbed Josie's head and smiled coldly. Don't worry, she will be soon. As for you, your first task now is to go back with me and plant legs. But, there are no buts. There are no paths in this world, but once you have legs, you'll have a path. And once you have a path and legs, you'll be able to widen your path. Audra's logic was so strong that Josie couldn't refute it. Chapter 1563. On the way back, Kiyomiya Ryoko sat in the front passenger seat and looked at the excited Josie through the rearview mirror from time to time. She was keenly aware that Josie's eyes had been glued to Audra ever since he got in the car. Didn't you always think the front passenger seat wasn't spacious enough? Why are you sitting next to me? Not long after they set off, Audra suddenly laughed. He looked straight ahead and only glanced out of the corner of his eye at the girl next to him, who had her arms crossed and her head slightly raised like a black swan. I'll sit wherever I want, humph. Kiyomiya Ryoko turned to look out the window, but her eyes never left Josie in the back seat through the reflection in the window, as if she was deep in thought. To be honest, she didn't dislike Josie. Even after meeting Josie for the first time, he felt great admiration for Josie's courage to smile at life. But for some reason, she felt uncomfortable when she saw Josie's gaze on Audra. She was very clear that that gaze was definitely not a gaze of love, but a pure admiration for her idol. But no matter how much she persuaded herself, Kiyomiya Ryoko still felt as if her heart was blocked, and she couldn't calm down. Ever since she had hired Audra as a bodyguard, she found that she had become more and more abnormal. With both hands on the steering wheel, Audra stared at the sulking girl next to him and couldn't help laughing in his heart. Ryoko was too cute, this girl couldn't hide her temper. She thought she was very mature, but in fact, her inner thoughts were written all over her face. Audra had in fact already decided on the idea of bringing Josie back. On one hand, it was to better complete his task, and on the other hand, it was to provoke Kiyomiya Ryoko. He had already gotten a good grasp of the girl's temper recently. If Josie had been a girl, she would probably have already started acting weird. It was precisely because Josie was a boy, and a disabled one at that, that this girl couldn't say a word now. Even if she was a little jealous, she could still sulk on her own. She was actually jealous of a boy, and a disabled one at that. For Kiyomiya Ryoko, it was too unbecoming of her to say this out loud. I'll cook some home cooking tonight. After driving for a while, Audra gripped the steering wheel and tried to break the deadlock in the car. Josie knew how to read people's expressions, and he also knew that Ryoko Kamiya was actually unhappy. However, given the current situation, he didn't dare to say anything. Obediently keeping his mouth shut was the best choice. There was no way Audra would let Josie be embarrassed alone. It was his duty to lighten the mood. Z, do you have any favorite dishes? Audra asked. I'm not a picky eater. I'll just eat with big brother and sister-in-law. Josie was a little embarrassed. After he said this, he instinctively wanted to see Kiyomiya Ryoko's reaction, but strangely, the girl in the passenger seat didn't move at all. Previously, when the girl was at his house, she had tried her best to deny this relationship. In the end, there was a feeling of tacit agreement. Out of the corner of his eye, Audra glanced at the girl, who looked like she had already fallen asleep, and curled his lips. Your sister-in-law is asleep. As soon as she said that, Ryoko's lips twitched. Oh, sister-in-law has fallen asleep. Josie's expression of sudden realization was extremely exaggerated. He couldn't help snickering in his heart. This Josie was smarter than he had imagined. He had actually already guessed that Ryoko was faking her sleep. But he didn't directly expose him, and at Audra's hint with his eyes, continued to cooperate with the rest of the performance. Z, just tell me what you want to eat. In any case, your sister-in-law is asleep and won't mind, Audra said in a low voice. Zhou understood and hurriedly lowered his voice as well. The current situation between the two of them really looked like they were taking care of the sleeping Kamiya Ryoko, so they lowered their voices. In fact, their voices weren't too low. There wasn't much space in the car, so Ryoko could still hear them clearly. Then what does sister-in-law usually like to eat? Your sister-in-law is afraid of getting fat and likes to eat bland food. But she's actually afraid that if she eats too bland, she won't be able to get enough nutrition. Audra looked at Ryoko's flat mouse pad and said, actually, her favorite dishes are spicy chicken and duck blood curd. I see. Zhou smiled, his eyes full of envy. Ah, that's great. Z, have you ever had a girlfriend? Audra asked. I'm a disabled person, how could anyone like me? Zhou shrugged helplessly. The teachers and classmates at school take good care of me, at least on the surface. But there are always discussions in private. What do they say about you? They say how a disabled person like me could get into Sword God Academy. It's probably something along those lines. You're not angry. There's nothing to be angry about. Zhou said, sometimes, a lot of people don't want to hear your excuses, they just want to enjoy the pleasure of arguing with you. That makes sense. Audra was secretly surprised by Zhou's maturity. Your sister-in-law also often argues with me at home. You two are different. Husband and wife quarrel at the head of the bed and reconcile at the end. The more you argue, the better your relationship, Zhou said. As he spoke, he was observing Ryoko's expression the whole time. In this short conversation, he kept calling her sister-in-law, and the corners of Ryoko's mouth and eyes twitched non-stop as he kept calling her sister-in-law. Even Zhou started to become curious about how much longer Ryoko could hang on. But as the saying went, you could never wake up a person who was pretending to be asleep. As long as Ryoko didn't want to wake up, it wouldn't matter how excessive their next topic was. If she woke up and retorted now, how awkward would that be? Audra was clearly aware of this, and he started to step on the accelerator and abruptly increase the speed. Z, he suddenly said at that moment. Brother Joie, what is it? Zhou understood and asked cooperatively. The two of them immediately echoed each other and began to sing the same tune. I was just thinking, if I had married a little earlier, would my son be about the same age as you? Pfft, Zhou couldn't help laughing on the spot. Brother Joie wants to be my father. Godfather. Godfather or whatever, that's too much. I think I can be your Shifu. A teacher for a day is a father for life. Then I'll be your son from now on. If you were my son, then the one next to you wouldn't be your sister-in-law right now. We're now a standard family of 3 in this car. A family of 3. I get it. Zhou bowed on the spot to Ryoko in the front passenger seat. Greetings, esteemed mother. At that moment, Ryoko suddenly opened her eyes and clenched her 2 little fists tightly as she shouted, Who's your esteemed mother? Her. I can't take it anymore, what the hell is this? The more she said, the more outrageous it became. Chapter 1564. Yes, Shifu, I've brought classmate Z back. He's a very obedient and sensible child. He and I get along very well. Also, Immortal Toya will personally visit him tomorrow for the operation. In short, Shifu, please rest assured about Z's situation. All the people who were monitoring classmate Zhou's family have been arrested, and none of them have been released. Battle Sex Koen has already mobilized his connections in Mishio Nation to take action against the foreign companies that are interfering with the 9 paths. I believe we'll have results in a few days. Also, Shifu, there's one more thing. I want to. Forget it, Shifu, go do what you need to do. When Shifu comes back to China, I'll personally pay him a visit. Zhou had never thought that there would come a day when he would. He could go live in Ajua's house for a while. In this world, there were two men he respected the most. The first person he worshipped was his father. And the second was Ajua. The former was his life support, and the latter was his spiritual pillar. In the car earlier, he and Ajua had worked together seamlessly and tacitly. For a moment, Zhou really felt like Ajua's disciple. But Zhou was also well aware. Being Ajua's disciple might be an extravagant hope. If he was joking, if he was serious, he would lose. After returning to the apartment, Ajua could clearly sense that Zhou mood seemed to be a little gloomier than before. He knew what on earth was going on in the little guy's head. In fact, what they had said in the car just now hadn't all been a joke. Ajua also had his own plans. But taking in a disciple was, after all, a big deal. There was no way he would accept it just like that. Thus, in the end, Wang Ling had to agree to it. Ajua was in the kitchen chopping vegetables around his apron. At that moment, he suddenly poked his head out and took the initiative to talk to Zhou. Z, can you come over and help me? Of course. Zhou, who had been scared out of his wits, readily agreed. Do you know how to cut vegetables? Ajua moved a chair so that Zhou could stand steadily on it. Yes. Zhou nodded. Even if he had lost both his legs, he was still very capable of taking care of himself. When Zhou was alone at home, he usually cooked himself. Shredded or diced? Shred the cucumber and dice the carrots. Mince the chili over there and help me peel the potatoes. All right. Young man, you're quite capable, Ajua praised him. Zhou blushed. He felt that there was no hope for him. Just a simple compliment was enough to make him feel extremely happy. Kyuya Ryoko hugged her pillow and looked in the direction of the kitchen. He looked at Zhou with hostility. In the car earlier, this little guy and Ajua had joined forces to tease her. She would remember this. Kamiya Ryoko pressed the remote control. On the surface, she pretended to be fine, but she was very annoyed in her heart. He didn't pay attention to any of the programs. When the program switched to the TV drama channel, a familiar line came from the channel, "You only lost your legs, but she lost her love." Kamiya Ryoko was speechless. Zhou, Ajua. At the same time, the closed-door competition between the 9 Paths and the National High School students was about to begin. The prize for first place was 1 million Sun Island dollars. Converted into Huaxiao's currency, it was equivalent to more than 60,000 at the exchange rate. This prize might not seem like much to other people, but it was especially important to Wang Ling. The contestants who had been selected as part of the school delegations for this competition wouldn't be too bad in terms of overall strength and family conditions. Apart from Wang Ling, almost no one was aiming for the prize money. Personal honor and the school's honor were more important. The 9 Paths and the Office of Academic Affairs, Yuki Junshan, were worried about the public opinion that had erupted today. He vaguely had a suspect in his heart. He knew who was playing tricks behind the scenes. Zhou Xiang. After thinking it over, Yuki Junshan could only think of this person. Whoever started the trouble had to end it. If he wanted to reverse public opinion, he would probably have to get Zhou Xiang to make a concession and speak up for the Office of Academic Affairs. Yuki Junshan had in fact already prepared for this. When the phone rang, Yuki Junshan was finally waiting for the signal to act. Is everything ready? Very good, then, please invite teacher Zhou Xiang to my office. It's time to talk to him. Zhou Xiang actually hadn't expected Yuki Junshan to find him so quickly. But this time, his confidence was different. In the past, his biggest worry had been his son. Now, Zhou Zi's problem had been completely solved. He had nothing to be afraid of. With eldest Miss Sun's help, Yuki Junshan would probably never have dreamed of the resources his son would enjoy in the future. And now, Zhou Xiang had Huaguo Water Curtain Group and Battle Sect working together to support him. One was a large, world-renowned elixir conglomerate, while the other was a globally recognized super sect that had risen to prominence in recent years and had official backing. When he returned to the country this time, he would also receive a special invitation from the War Sect to teach language at the War Sect. The salary and benefits would be 20 times higher than what Nine Paths and the Nine Paths were offering. Not only that, the people in charge of the Battle Sect also promised that they would provide him with a mountain. In the future, apart from teaching him language, they would also pass on knowledge of cultivation history. This was a course specially designed for children who had no talent but were determined to contribute to the human cultivation cause. It wasn't just Battle Sect. Other schools actually had similar courses and teachers who specialized in this area. Cultivation wasn't just about improving one's level and knowing how to use all kinds of fancy spells and magical equipment. It was also very important to pass on the culture and history of the cultivation sect. Among modern cultivators, as long as they had some achievements in cultivation history and culture, even if they had low or no cultivation level, they would be treated just as well. The treatment they received was no less than that of cultivators with higher levels. Battle Sect was a sect that had blossomed in all aspects. Chinese and history courses had long been in the process of preparation, but Zhou Xiang's appearance just happened to speed up the process. Of course, it wasn't just because they wanted Zhou Xiang to make a decision as soon as possible. It was because Zhou Xiang himself was indeed a talent worthy of these resources. Zhou Xiang was clearly a lot more confident when he came to Yuki Genshin's office again. He no longer had to bow and scrape like those lowly animals who had to endure Yuki Genshin's disdainful looks. After entering the office, he sat on the sofa and crossed his legs, looking completely fearless. Yuki Junshan and Holland, the board member of the foreign corporation next to him, were both shocked by this action. Yuki Junshan sneered. "Mr. Zhou, are you planning to give up now?" He hadn't asked anything, but Zhou Xiang was acting like this in front of him. Yuki Genshin's suspicions were finally answered. "You've privately spread a religion that doesn't conform to the school's culture. You're already suspected of illegally spreading religion. According to the laws of this country, you can be detained." Yuki Junshan threatened. Religion. Zhou Xiang couldn't help but laugh. The Grey Sect. Apart from the word sect, it's written the same way as a religion. Which part of it has anything to do with religion? It's just a student literary club. Do you think your sweet words will work? Zhou Xiang. Yuki Junshan snorted. If you're detained for breaking the law, you'll also be fired by the school. What will happen to your disabled son if you lose your income? Have you ever thought about that? So, you're threatening me with my son. At this moment, Zhou Xiang could only sigh at his decisiveness back then. Fortunately, Leek Sasaki had found him ahead of time and expressed his willingness to cooperate with Zhanzong and Huaguo Water Curtain Group, otherwise, he really would be pinned down by others like this. His son was his lifeline. But now, his biggest weakness had been completely dealt with. Zhou Xiang said, "Yuki Junshan, you really are a sinister villain. My son often tells me that someone is watching him when he sleeps at night. They should be the people you sent, right?" Yuki Junshan laughed. "Since you know what I'm up to, I really don't know why you're still pretending to be tough. Mr. Zhou Xiang, you can't leave the Nine Paths and their treatment. Then you might as well make another call and ask if the people you sent to watch him are still there." Zhou Xiang spread his hands indifferently. Yuki Junshan frowned slightly. He thought of Zhou Xiang's uncharacteristically tough behavior today and began to worry about the situation over there. It can't be, Yuki Junshan thought worriedly. He had clearly spoken to the informant over there just now, and the informant had said that the situation was under control. At this moment, with a skeptical look, Yuki Jun-san called back again. The person who answered the phone was none other than Audua. Hello, Mr. Yuki Jun-shan. Is there anything else? The situation is under control. Hearing this, Yuki Jun-shan realized that the person who answered the phone didn't have the right accent. I don't recognize your voice. I'm new here, Audua replied as he cooked. While cooking, Audua replied, I was the one who called you just now. So, the situation has been resolved. Yes, Mr. Yuki, it's been resolved. Then why did Zhou Xiang, but your people were dealt with? My wife is waiting for me to cook. Don't bother me if there's nothing important. Audua smiled. Oh, by the way, the people you sent are now locked up in Songhai First Prison. If you don't believe me, give them a call and ask yourself. They probably won't be out for espionage for more than 10 years. The call was cut off. Yuki Junshan hung up with an incredulous expression. Damn it. What on earth had Zhou Xiang done? Who's backing you up? Yuki Junshan was so angry that he was shaking. The feeling of being toyed with made him furious. He glared at Zhou Xiang with hatred in his eyes. Do you think that even if you manage to protect your son, I will not be able to protect him? Do you think you can leave Sun Island alive? What, Jodao PC's dean's office is going to do something to me, a teacher of the people? Zhou Xiang got up with a teasing expression on his face. He dusted off his pants and walked straight out the door. If you want to do something to me, go ahead. But I advise teacher Yuki Junshan to stop as soon as possible. Don't ask for trouble. How can you live without Jodao peace? Live? He. Tue. Zhou Xiang raised his eyebrows. His throat trembled as he spat on the floor of the dean's office. I've already sent my resignation letter to the dean's office and the headmaster's office. You make me sick. Just you wait, Zhou Xiang. I won't let you off easy. Yuki Junshan stamped his foot in exasperation. Dongfu City Football Stadium. This time, the closed-door competition for the ranking of high school students from 100 high schools on Sun Island would be held here. All the delegations had their own waiting rooms. Before the start of the competition, Wang Ming had reconfirmed Wang Ling's one-use talismans. He still had 66 functioning talismans, so he judged that it shouldn't be a problem for him to survive the competition. If you feel something's wrong, just run. Don't worry about anything else, got it? I'll use my brainwaves to erase the memories of everyone here, Wang Ming told Wang Ling. He realized that ever since Wang Ming and Zhai Yin had gotten together, this guy's brainwaves had become more and more versatile. But to be honest, after confirming their relationship, Wang Ming's brainwaves had indeed become a lot stronger. Wang Ling guessed that this was probably the result of a man in love who was constantly stimulated by his adrenal glands and male hormones. Coupled with his brainwaves during the day and at night, this idiot brother of his had become even stronger than before. Why do you look even more nervous than Ling Ling? Zhai Yin couldn't help laughing. They weren't in public now, so it was better for her to maintain her original appearance. The main reason was that her earlier disguise as Lotus Sun had been too unnatural, and could almost be said to be full of loopholes. So to be on the safe side, Zhai Yin and Lotus Sun had discussed that in private, Zhai Yin would still be herself to adjust her mentality. If it was Lotus Sun's turn to appear, Zhai Yin could use a magic treasure to complete her disguise in one click. Of course I'm nervous. The main thing is that I'm afraid Ling Ling won't know what to do. What if he accidentally uses 100 million points of power and erases Sun Island from the satellite map? Are you exaggerating? I can't factor, I want you to recharge my batteries. Wang Ming took a deep breath, put his arm around Xia Yin's waist, and rested his head on her chest. And this was the legendary brainwave man-body Satoshi. On the side, Lotus Sun, who was disguised as Ryoko Kamiya, was envious. At that moment, Leek Sasaki pushed open the door and came in with the wild group Feng, Peacock and Hattori Chuanja, who had gone out to gather information. Everyone. Are you ready? Leek Sasaki said, we've just drawn lots and decided on the groups. There will be a total of 500 people from the 100 delegations participating in the competition this time. Half of them will be eliminated in the first round. According to the order, Lang Sang's match will start first. Their opponent is Kawada High School's Kanzuya Sakai. This surname sounds a little familiar. Lotus Sun frowned slightly. That's right. This Kanzuya Sakai is actually the younger brother of the sucker who was forced to give away that purple cherry blossom earlier. Leek Sasaki couldn't help laughing. The key is that Kanzuya Sakai also joined the Nine Paths and the Grey Sect branch in the afternoon. Wang Ling. Chapter 1565. Before the start of the tournament, Sakai Kanzuya had been conflicted about whether to join the Grey Church or not. His academic performance had always been very good, and he had never made any mistakes. He was a child who made his parents very worry-free. As the second child in the family, the young Kanzuya Sakai had always been doted on by the head of the Sakai family, Akira Sakai. He was a typical other people's child, growing up surrounded by all kinds of praises. However, just over 10 hours ago, everything seemed to have been broken by Huaguo Water Curtain Group's contract. His big brother Sakai Toitani, who loved to cause trouble, suddenly received his father's praise and favor. This made Sakai Kanzuya upset from the beginning to the end. He knew Sakai Toitani's intellect very well. With his brother's intellect, it was impossible for him to use that pot of purple cherry to win the attention of the young miss of Huaguo Water Curtain Group. So the question was, who gave his big brother the idea? Sakai Kanzuya carefully analyzed the changes in his big brother and finally came to a conclusion. Everything was related to his big brother joining the Grey Church. It was clearly just a literary exchange organization, but it had such a great charm that it could cause a person's IQ to undergo a huge change. This forced Sakai Kanzuya to reevaluate the importance of the Grey Church. Since there were benefits to joining the Grey Church, he couldn't fall behind. Fortunately, his academic results were excellent. Just like that, Sakai Kanzuya joined the Nine Paths and the Grey Church's branch with outstanding results. But what Sakai didn't expect was that in today's match, the first person he drew was the legendary Ho Lang Sang. Now, the situation was very clear. Since as long as he followed the wishes of that young prodigal son, he would be able to win the favor of that young miss. He had to lose the next round. Not only did he have to lose, he had to lose beautifully. He lost so badly that no one would be able to tell that he was rigging the match. After this incident with Sakai Toyoto, Sakai Kazuo finally understood. The school's honor was **T. He had received so many awards that he could use them as wallpaper. In the end, it still couldn't compare to Sakai Toyoto's luck and the huge family benefits. Father. Watch carefully. Isn't it just being a bootlicker? I can do it too. Before going on stage, Kanzuya Sakai's mood was extremely complicated. But he was already prepared to lose to Wang Ling. As the saying goes, the certificate was valuable, but the honor was even more valuable. If he chose the path of a bootlicker, he could abandon both of them. Finally, it was time for the match between Wang Ling and Kanzuya Sakai. Due to the closed-door nature of the competition, the entire arena was prohibited from recording. No one could see what was happening inside. But Wang Ming could use his brain waves to remotely sense the images inside and project them into the minds of Lotus Sun, Xia Yin, Chive Sasaki and the others. Take it easy. Jia Yin was actually very worried about Wang Ming's condition. The main reason was that Wang Ming had been very excited these last few days, and he was worried that Wang Ming's brain would overheat from working too fast. In the end, Wang Ming's expression was a lot calmer than he had imagined. Don't worry about me, I feel like my brain has improved a lot recently. Wang Ming smiled. After all, now that he had a girlfriend, he would have a human seat beside him that could charge his brain waves for 5 minutes and talk for 2 hours. It was enough to make him feel refreshed. His first opponent was a member of the Grace sect. This was actually good news. As long as Sakai Kanzuya wasn't stupid, he wouldn't risk his life. It would actually be more advantageous for Wang Ling if he threw the match, because it would save him a lot of one-off talismans and allow him to advance to the next round. But in Chive Sasaki's view, throwing the match was still technically difficult. Although it was a closed-door competition, the referee ball wasn't a fool. In regular matches, the referee ball had a built-in anti-match fixing function, which could determine whether two people were engaged in a fixed match based on the details of the fight, and thus carry out an intelligent assessment. If it was judged to be fixed, then both sides would be disqualified from the competition. In other words, if Sakai Kanzuya sincerely wanted to lose, he would have to trick the referee ball. Thus, Chive Sasaki was actually a little worried deep down. Brother Air, if this Sakai Kanzuya doesn't act well, I'm afraid Holang Sang will be implicated. Don't worry, it won't be a problem. Wang Ming smiled as usual. In fact, Wang Ming had already studied the referee ball's method of determining whether a match was fixed. Before the start of each match, the referee ball would automatically measure the strength of both sides through the system, and then make a decision based on the results of the match as a whole. Generally speaking, if the side with the higher number at the start lost to the side with the lower number, there was a 70% chance that the match was fixed. Thus, the mechanism for determining whether a match was fixed was actually based on the initial number. Here, Wang Ling wanted to win and Sakai Kanzuya wanted to lose. And even with the multiple seals, Wang Ling's initial number was more than 1,000,000,000,000 points higher than Sakai Kanzuya's. Thus, the basic judgment of a match being fixed wasn't valid from the start. He just needed to follow the normal procedure. At least, that was what Wang Ling thought when he officially met Sakai Kanzuya. Wang Ling and Sakai Kanzuya faced each other in a completely enclosed independent arena. Sakai Kanzuya looked very nervous, and the sweat on his cheeks had been rolling down continuously since the start of the match, dripping to the ground without a break. In the 200 square meter room, there were 6 referee balls floating in the air, monitoring the match from all angles. 6 balls, Sakai Kanzuya was well aware of this. If he wanted to fix the match, he would have to trick these 6 referee balls. BZZT. The 6 referee balls in the air gradually unfurled intertwining lines of spirit power. Wang Ling and Sakai Kanzuya were well aware of this. The basic combat strength judgment was about to begin. This was the key to determining whether or not a match was fixed. Wang Ling looked at the air indifferently as he waited for the referee balls to make their judgment. On the other side, Sakai Kanzuya looked a little flustered. He didn't know what Wang Ling's combat strength was. Thus, he didn't dare act rashly. Furthermore, his main worry was, if his combat strength was higher than Wang Ling's. If he lost the match, it was very likely that it would be judged as a match being fixed, and he would be eliminated along with this young man in front of him. He would think of the many rumors about Wang Ling as a mascot. Sakai Kanzuya began to fear more and more that his initial value might really be higher than Wang Ling's. He absolutely couldn't let that happen. He was Sakai Kanzuya. He had to carry the young man to the finals. And so, after making up his mind, before the judgment light hit him, Sakai Kanzuya slapped himself hard on the forehead. Pooh! A large mouthful of blood gushed out of Sakai Kanzuya's mouth like an exaggerated fountain. For Sakai Kanzuya, this was a helpless move. Because he was worried that his initial value would be higher than Wang Ling's, he could only use this method to weaken himself by hurting himself. But Wang Ling felt this move. There was no need. Chapter 1566. In the first round, Wang Ling won effortlessly. The main reason was that Sakai Kanzuya was too ruthless. She directly hit Tenko with her palm, and after causing damage, she held on until the start of the match. Wang Ling didn't even move. Sakai Kazuo bled from his 7 orifices and directly fell to the ground with a happy expression on his face. But this kind of self-mutilation to please Lotus Sun didn't suit her expectations. After Kanzuya Sakai was carried away, Lotus Sun immediately split off Mysterious C's sword chi to chase after him and treat him. He's working so hard, Rong, aren't you going to help him? Wang Ming laughed in the independent mental chat space. If everyone used this method, then this shortcut would be too easy. Lotus Sun's expression was also very helpless. So to sum up. In the end, Kanzuya Sakai paid the wrong price. In the office of the Kyushu and the dean's office, Yuki Kuin-san projected the footage of the closed-door competition into the office. This was a technique that used certain technical means to steal the image captured by the referee's ball into an image magic treasure and then project it. Witsuji Junshan hoped that Wang Ling would lose, so naturally everyone was watching Wang Ling's fight. Sakai Kanzuya from Kawada High School lost just like that. On the side, Holland from the foreign capital looked very ugly. He had seen Wang Ling's and Kanzuya Alcohol's data on paper, and Kanzuya Sakai's attributes were superior to Wang Ling's in all aspects. If even Sakai and Kanzuya were to lose, then Holland couldn't think of any other possibility besides going easy on them. I didn't expect Sakai Kanzuya to be so ruthless. The Great Church really can't be underestimated. Yuki Kaneyama was also shocked by Kanzuya Sakai's self-destructive move to weaken himself before the start of the match. What was it that made Sakai Kanzuya go to this extent? Wamaki Jun-san and Holland were puzzled by this matter. Can you analyze Holang Sang's combat strength? Holland asked. I'm still thinking of a way. Wamaki Jun-san said. Stealing the ball from the referee is already a very dangerous operation. It will take some time to steal the combat power data. Mr. Holland. Who is this Holang Sang's next opponent? He's from Kawada High School. His name is Eiki Yonakura. But don't worry, Mr. Holland, because I've arranged for this person. Yuki Jun-san laughed sinisterly. To deal with a hothead like that, it's not enough to defeat him in a match. Isn't this a little too boring? I want him to lose all standing and reputation. Akio Yonakura. I think I've heard this name before. This is the person on the list of Mishio elite students I provided to the Ministry of Foreign Investment. This student intends to further his studies in Mishio Nation. However, his family conditions are rather poor, so he doesn't have the qualifications to go. Yuki Jun-san said, so, I proposed to him the condition of a recommendation. They wanted him to lose the match on purpose. In that case, the referee would be able to determine that it was a rigged match and eliminate him and that Holang Sang. I see. Holland nodded. But such a move would be a self-destructive move. Student Mikura's reputation will also be affected. Not at all. Yuki Jun-san shook his head and said, when he goes abroad to study, he'll have a new identity. I promise to give student Mikura Wei-Ming clean data without any foundation so that he can start a new life. Thus, the record of a rigged match won't affect him at all. Hearing this, Holland heaved a long sigh of relief. The preparations this time did sound very thorough, without the slightest mistake or oversight. After all, this was how a rigged match was determined. If one side cheated, both sides would be eliminated together. As long as they were eliminated together, no matter which side had ulterior motives, they would be labeled as untrustworthy. Spectators often didn't care about the truth of the matter, it was fine as long as there was public opinion to guide them. Then, most people's habitual thinking would make them rush to the front like hungry wolves, bite down hard on their prey, and gorge themselves on it. Understanding the truth was too tiring, only happiness mattered. In some sense, Yuki Jun-shan was indeed a very cunning opponent. He had a unique vision, and had pinpointed Wang Ling as the key to everything. As long as he could topple Wang Ling, whatever gray sect or reinforcements, they would all be defeated like a landslide. No matter what kind of achievements you had previously or how many people liked you, as long as you did one thing wrong, it would be magnified by public opinion. It wouldn't matter even if you were God. Because that was the reality. But what Holland and Yuki Jun-shan didn't expect was, their seemingly flawless plan for a rigged match had a very important key. And that was, the referee's initial assessment of Wang Ling's fighting strength had to be lower than that Mikura Weiming, but they didn't know. This was a rigged match that could never be possible. Elsewhere, in Huaxiao Nation's Songhai City staff apartment. With Zhou Ziyi's help, Zhua elegantly prepared a table full of fragrant home-cooked dishes. As he ate, he switched the TV to a specific satellite channel. The TV was showing a live broadcast of Wang Ling's closed-door match. This image had been projected by Wang Ming's brainwaves to the Battle Sect satellite in space. A password was needed to access the channel. Thus, only a few core members of the Battle Sect knew how to get in. Isn't that classmate Wang Ling? Jimiya Ryoko frowned. The moment she saw Wang Ling, she suddenly felt that the youngster's face looked a little familiar. And she didn't know why. She suddenly felt that Zhua seemed to be paying special attention to Wang Ling himself. A woman's intuition told her that the relationship between Wang Ling and Zhua wasn't simply that of a senior and a junior. Although Lotus Sun had told her earlier that Wang Xiao and Wang Ling were disciples that Zhua had secretly taken in, Jimiya Ryoko still felt that there was something wrong with the way Zhua looked at Wang Ling. What kind of Shifu looked at their disciples with admiration? And the way Zhua looked at him was the same way Zhou Ziyi was looking at him now. So, why on earth was it like this? Jimiya Ryoko started to feel a little confused. Classmate Wang Ling, is this a competition? Jimiya Ryoko asked curiously. Yes. Zhua nodded. As my disciple, of course I have to be concerned as his Shifu. After Zhua said this, Jimiya Ryoko fell silent again. She took a bite of the sweet and sour spare ribs, and for some reason, felt that they were particularly sour today. On the other side, when Zhou Ziyi heard that Wang Ling was Zhua's disciple, he also felt a little upset. It turned out that, Brother Zhua already had a disciple. That was true. Wasn't it very normal for such an outstanding person like Brother Zhua to have two disciples? Zhou Ziyi quickly adjusted his mentality, and his eyes quickly returned to normal as he stared fixedly at the image on the TV. He had wanted to study Wang Ling's charisma for Zhua to take him in as a disciple. Just as he turned his gaze, the crisp sound of a slap rang out on the TV. Because at that very moment, classmate Mikura Weiming, who was in the second round of the competition with Wang Ling, was slapping himself for some reason. Chapter 1567. Huaguo Water Curtain Group. Jiang Xiaoche was working overtime again today, because it was almost time to get off work. Old Man Sun had summoned Jiang Xiaoche. There were all kinds of snacks and different flavors of popcorn on the old man's table, and he had even hired a dessert chef to make desserts on the spot. Jiang Xiaoche felt that this scene was a little familiar. He subconsciously glanced at the time, puzzled by Old Man Sun's behavior. This wasn't the time for the World Cup. It wasn't the time for League of Valor's S99 Global Finals. And it wasn't the time for Old Man Sun's favorite TV series or variety shows. Recently, the popular variety show, Big Brothers Who Stir Up Trouble, was Old Man Sun's favorite. Old Man Sun was a fashionable old man. In order to catch up with young people and gain a better understanding of their market, he never resisted learning about new things. But this scene in front of him wasn't common. "Xiao Che, come and sit down. I was just worried that no one would watch the competition with me," Old Man Sun called out. Old Man Sun fiddled with the magic ball on the table, and a three-dimensional holographic image immediately appeared in the air. "This is..." Jiang Xiaoche looked at this scene hesitantly. Because the scene in front of him instantly made him notice a familiar person. It was that pretty boy called Wang Ling. "This is the live broadcast of classmate Wang Ling's exchange student competition on Sun Island," Old Man Sun said. Jiang Xiaoche was a little confused. "But I remember that classmate Wang Ling participated in a closed-door competition." Because of his connection with Sun Island's business, Jiang Xiaoche actually had a certain level of understanding of Sun Island. It was Lotus Sun who had found him and asked him to sign the 2 billion yuan deal with Sakai Toyonian's family. "So this old man also paid a certain price," Old Man Sun said. "Price? Isn't the organizer the Sun Island Alliance of 10,000 schools? This old man agreed to be the title sponsor for their follow-up large-scale competition, which was how I managed to get this video." Hearing this, Jiang Xiaoche's heart inexplicably ached a little. "But master, I still don't know why you called me here." "No buts. Chatting with me is part of your duty as Secretary General." "Master, I have to be with my girlfriend today, don't give me that. You still want to pretend that you have a girlfriend in front of me? You might have many female companions, but even now, you are still a lonely old man. Don't think I don't know." These words were like a whip that deeply lashed at Jiang Xiaoche's heart, causing him to be immediately stunned on the spot. Old Man Sun said, "Sit down. I'm looking for you this time because I want to watch the game with you and then have a casual chat. I think you've always misunderstood student Wang Ling." Hearing this, Jiang Xiaoche was instantly stunned. He thought that no one would know what he had done. However, he never thought that he could not escape the old man's eyes in the end. Old Man Sun in front of him was the one who hid the most. "Have a seat, little Che." Old Man Sun smiled kindly. All right, the amiable light in those eyes was like a spring breeze caressing one's face. Jiang Xiaoche could not refuse, and at the same time, he felt ashamed. He didn't dare to look Old Man Sun in the eye. He could only sit by the side. As he watched, Jiang Xiaoche realized that this match seemed a little different from what he had imagined. Why did that Sun Island native student keep slapping his own face? Meanwhile, the battle between Wang Ling and Mikura Weimei was still going on. To be honest, Mikura Weimei had been against the idea of a rigged match at first. But the conditions that Yuki Kaneyama had offered him were too good. It had always been his dream to study abroad. His grades at Kawada High School were excellent, and he had received a lot of scholarships every year. But it was unrealistic to rely on these meager scholarships to study abroad. The most important thing was that the school could only recommend a few students to study abroad each year. You could count them on your fingers. It was said that the students with the best grades would be selected. But in practice, these places were destined to be reserved for those who had the connections. Mikura Weimei had no background or power, and secondly, he had no money. It would be a fool's dream for him to get a recommendation. Thus, Mikura Weimei had already made plans the next day. He clearly knew that a rigged match was in fact a very shameful thing to do, but he was still willing to do it. Because right now, he was nothing. The only thing he could do was endure for the time being and become someone else's pawn. As long as he could get through this and officially breathe the air of freedom in Mishio Nation, everything would be worth it. What he had to do was to endure it silently. A rigged match had to be rigged. Watching Mikura Weimei slap himself again and again, Wang Ling's thoughts were inexplicably complicated. The Wang family, for example, were actually just ordinary commoners. But under the influence of Father and Mother Wang's education since young, Wang Ling knew better than anyone else how to be content with what he had. Wang Ling had never thought about studying abroad. Because the moon was the same everywhere in the world, even if he went abroad, the moon might not necessarily be rounder. But just because he thought this way didn't mean that other people thought the same. Mikuro Uemei wanted to rise and obtain better resources, and use his own efforts to give his family a better life. There was nothing wrong with this in itself. Why is that person hitting himself? In front of the TV, Zhou Zi was puzzled. He probably made an agreement with someone to drag my disciple down with him through a rigged match. Audra picked up a pepper and salt pork chop and put it in Jamiya Ryoko's bowl. This scene lifted Jamiya Ryoko's mood a little, but then she saw Audra pick up another chop and put it in Zhou Zi's bowl. Jamiya Ryoko, the way Sun Island judges a rigged match is very simple. First, it's based on basic combat strength, and second, it's based on overall combat strength. As long as the side with the higher combat strength is suspected of going easy, it's very easy to judge it as a rigged match. Then, both sides will be disqualified. Then isn't classmate Wang Ling in danger? Zhou Zi stared fixedly at the screen. To be honest, if he had been in this situation, he definitely wouldn't have known what to do. He wanted to see how Wang Ling would deal with it. Wang Ling watched as Mikuro Uemei slapped himself again and again, leaving crisscrossed handprints on his originally thin little face. He was as heavy-handed as Kanzuya Sakai from before. These slaps on the face were in fact infused with inner strength. Mikuro Uemei was deliberately giving himself internal injuries. But Wang Ling could see that. Mikuro Uemei didn't want to do that. As he slapped himself, he couldn't stop the tears from rolling down his cheeks. They were silent tears. It wasn't because of the pain. The moment he faced Mikuro Uemei, Wang Ling had already known everything. Yuki Kaneyama's request for Mikuro Uemei was for him to injure him as much as possible, then fall to the ground and play dead, to deliberately let Wang Ling win, and thus judge it as a rigged match. That was to say, there were many ways to judge a rigged match. But Mikuro Uemei had chosen one. A way that wouldn't hurt anyone. Because the final result would be the same, he just needed to achieve his goal of rigging the match. Although he knew that choosing to study abroad in this way was extremely unfair to Wang Ling. Even if he didn't hurt Wang Ling, he would still have a bad reputation for rigging the match. Mikuro Uemei couldn't think of any way to make up for it, thus, he could only use this method. After so many years, he had endured it all. Powerless, he had drifted with the tide on this small cultivation island just so that his family could live a better life. At the same time, he slapped himself. Shame, resistance, and the intense loneliness of struggling alone suddenly welled up in his heart. Tears fell uncontrollably from Mikuro Uemei's eyes. At that moment, he saw Wang Ling slowly approach him with his hands in his trouser pockets. "No, don't come near me. Long-san." Mikuro Uemei's face was already so swollen that he couldn't speak. He was roaring in his heart. He thought that no one could understand his helplessness and loneliness. But the truth was that when Wang Ling gradually approached him and looked him in the eye, Wang Ling's expression changed. In a split second, Mikuro Uemei suddenly felt his mind go blank, and he actually fell into a trance. What is this? At that moment, an empty universe appeared in Mikuro Uemei's mind. In the boundless universe, there wasn't even a single star. He saw the lonely figure of the Kingling. Mikuro Uemei's heart was instantly moved. He couldn't imagine the scene in his mind. He had thought that he was already the loneliest person in the world. But he had never expected that the loneliness in the heart of the youngster standing in front of him would be far greater than his. That feeling of helplessness, desolation, and solitude crept over him like a crawling worm, and Mikuro Uemei's mind instantly went blank. Bystanders couldn't tell what was happening at all. Mikuro Ueme's body went limp and he fell forward. Wang Ling carefully caught his body and slowly laid him flat on the ground. That move just now was called the Great Loneliness Spell. It was also one of the gentler spells among Wang Ling's current Heavenly Dao spells. There weren't any side effects. The victim would feel 1/1,000,000th of Wang Ling's loneliness, and would gradually stop thinking under the impact of this loneliness. Thus, Mikuro Ueme closed his eyes just like that, as expected. Wang Ling stared at the youngster on the ground without the slightest ripple of emotion on his face. Before he left, he cast a spirit light on Mikuro Ueme's face. The swollen face that Mikuro Ueme had slapped almost deformed instantly returned to normal. Chapter 1568. When Mikuro woke up, he realized that he was in the infirmary. He took out his phone and looked at his face in the reflection on the screen. His face, which should have been swollen from being slapped, had completely recovered. There was no pain, no internal injuries, as if he hadn't participated in the competition at all. He already couldn't remember how he had collapsed. It was just that the moment his eyes met Wang Ling's, a huge emptiness and loneliness assaulted his mind, causing his thoughts to stagnate. Then, Mikuro closed his eyes. This duel was like a dream. "Student, you're awake." The old auntie in the infirmary looked at Mikuro. "Doctor, my injuries. You fainted during the competition, and you were sent here without any external injuries. But we can't determine your internal injuries for the time being. How are you feeling? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere?" "No." Mikuro was astonished. He was already uninjured when he was sent here. Logically speaking, given how hard Wang Ling had hit him, it was impossible for him to recover so quickly. So, did Holang-san do something? Mikuro was puzzled. "Student, if you're not feeling unwell, please give up your bed. There are still students waiting in line for treatment." "How far has the competition progressed?" Mikuro was even more puzzled. "There are currently 125 people, and 25 people will be selected for the Arena Master Battle." "The Arena Master Battle has already begun." "That's right. It said that the winner will be decided through a contest of mental strength. The student who fought with you earlier is one of the 25 Arena Masters," the doctor said. Mikuro understood. He had heard of this Arena Master Battle before. The 25 Arena Masters were the defenders. As long as they could defend against 5 random people's mental attacks, they would directly advance to the next round. As for the attackers, as long as they succeeded in their attack, they would become the new Arena Master. After becoming the new Arena Master, they would have to continue defending against 4 people's attacks to advance to the next round. According to the rules of this closed-door competition, only 50 people could advance to the next round. That was to say, the first 50 people to advance would advance to the next round. "How is Holang-san? Closed-door competition, how would I know?" The doctor sighed. As he spoke, he pointed to the door with his eyes. Wei Akira was taken aback for a moment before he got off the bed and walked towards the infirmary. As soon as he stepped out of the door, he was shocked by the scene in front of him, because it was in the corridor in front of the infirmary. Those who had fainted were lying on the ground like sardines. What is this? Like a piece of wood, Mikuro Ueme was rooted to the spot by the scene in front of him. About 90% of the people lying on the ground had been sent by Wang Ling. Because of everyone who faced Wang Ling. Finally, they all closed their eyes. He successfully advanced to the first 10% of the group stage. Wang Ling's fluctuating heart was finally mostly at ease. He didn't expect that the winner of the Arena Lord round would be decided by a battle of mentality. Conversely, this was what he was better at. Compared with physical contact, mental damage was actually less harmful. Coupled with the restriction of the one-time use talisman on him, he could almost ignore the damage caused by the mental battle. For example, in the Arena Lord round, Wang Ling only needed to sit upright and calculate functions in his mind. Whoever dared to invade his mental space would immediately be entangled by countless parabolas, and die on the spot, according to the memories of the people who had woken up after the fight with Wang Ling. Because the calculations in their brains had been too complicated, they already couldn't remember exactly what had happened. They just felt like their minds had been enveloped by a sea of parabolas and mathematical symbols. After waking up, they actually didn't feel the slightest bit distressed about their failure. Instead, they felt very guilty for not learning math well. As a result, some rumors began to spread in the stadium. Holang San, a magical man. He's actually calculating math problems during the entire competition. Holang San is really a very gentle man. I heard that when student Wei Akira was injured, it was also Holang San who healed him. He actually healed his opponent. No wonder so many people join the Grey sect. I get it. He's a magical man. So are the 9 Paths and Grey sect branches still recruiting? I'm pretty good at Chinese and math. Wang Ling, in the infinite Milky Way, the monk had originally been playing Gomoku with Dusk. Before the first game was over, the monk had already turned to his character and projected an image of Wang Ling's match on Earth into the air. Savage couldn't wait for the monk to leave after this game. But when he saw that the image in the air was of Wang Ling's match, he deliberately slowed down a lot. He pretended to be thinking seriously about the game and looked like he didn't care at all, but in fact, he was quietly watching Wang Ling's every move out of the corner of his eye. TSK, you really aren't frank. The monk couldn't help laughing. If you want to watch, just watch openly. This poor monk has plenty of time. Savage frowned. Monk, you should know who he is, right? Don't talk nonsense, this poor monk doesn't know. Monk Jin Deng fiddled with the Buddha beads in his hand, his eyes narrowed into slits, his expression extremely mysterious. You already have the answer in your heart, don't you? Dusk was silent for a while, but only said 3 words, mysterious thing. The monk laughed. Whimsical idea. Savage let out a long sigh. But apart from this, I really can't think of where this power came from. Tianming is still locked up there, so it can't be him. Monk Jin Deng shook his head and said, I once thought of many possibilities, but in the end, I rejected them all. Do you see this poor monk's pair of characters? Back then, in order to test his identity, I only got a glimpse of his silhouette, but this poor monk's character was already blind. There's actually such a thing. When Dusk and Ping Shiren next to him heard this, they were utterly stunned. They had never heard the monk mention this before. That's too much, monk. Although Dusk had just suffered a setback at Wang Ling's hands, he still didn't believe that Wang Ling could be that powerful. He felt that the monk's remarks were a little exaggerated. If you don't believe me, you can try. The monk smiled. Now, you can enter Ling Jinren's head and take a look. Try invading it with your mental energy and you'll know. What are you plotting? Dusk's expression was a little alert. I'm just responding to your doubts. Isn't the truth the more practical? If you're afraid, this poor monk will understand. After all, this poor monk is also afraid. The monk smiled. Ha, it's just a try. I'll give it a try. Dusk snorted. A few seconds later, Dusk closed his eyes and stopped thinking for a while. Chapter 1569. The monk hadn't expected Dusk to fall to the ground at all. To compete with Ling Jinren in terms of functions, and to go so deep, if you didn't close your eyes, who would? Having experienced it firsthand, the monk was well aware of how terrifying this ability was. This time, Dusk had miscalculated. Monk Golden Lamp counted the time on his fingers, it would probably be a long time before dusk woke up. However, the other party was too hostile to him, and kept trying to drive him away. After thinking it over, the monk felt that having dusk close his eyes for the time being was the safest option. There were still many things in the universe that dusk had to deal with, and now wasn't the time for him to throw away his life in vain. Monk, you're deliberately letting him. Ping Shiren wasn't stupid, and could more or less see through the monk's intentions. But he still couldn't figure out why the monk was doing this. You've caused trouble, the monk said as he looked at him. Caused trouble? Hearing this, Ping Shiren couldn't help looking puzzled. Then, he laughed bitterly, and there was vigilance in his eyes. I'm just a soul now. What else do you want, monk? Monk Golden Lamp only felt sorry for Ping Shiren's obstinacy. But he always believed that Tao Ancestor Wang must have had an ulterior motive for choosing Ping Shiren as a true disciple back then. No matter what happened next, it was still necessary for Ping Shiren to exist. This was the best-case scenario that the monk had calculated so far. You still don't understand the seriousness of the problem. The monk stared at Ping Shiren and said, You also underestimate how terrifying that evil god is. Tao Ancestor went through so much trouble to seal him back then, and it was reasonable. If you let him out, the universe will definitely be thrown into chaos. As long as the heavenly tomb is in my hands, what can he do? He's just a shark with its teeth pulled out. Ping Shiren finished speaking. The monk just looked at him quietly without saying a word. After a moment of silence, Ping Shiren's expression suddenly changed drastically, and he slumped to the ground. It seems you've finally figured it out, the monk said. Ping Shiren looked flustered, and his cheeks started to drip with sweat. He had figured it out. His physical body, it was still in the star-devouring space. Although he had been hiding the location of the heavenly tomb, if the heretic god used his body, even if he didn't say anything, he could still find the heavenly tomb. Although that person's strength was not as great as before, he still had that kind of ability. Ping Shiren was very clear about this. However, Ping Shiren still couldn't believe that he had been deceived by the grave goddess. I have a soul contract with him. It's impossible for him to betray me. Ping Shiren exclaimed. Tyrant put his palms together and sighed. Do you know why Tao Ancestor couldn't kill him completely and chose to separate him into two and seal him separately? Ping Shiren was stunned. Because this was something he had never thought about. With his master's personality, if he had a way to completely destroy such an evil god, he would definitely not use a roundabout method like sealing him. The evil beings in this world could only be completely eliminated in order to avoid future troubles. But Monk Golden Lamp knew the truth. However, there was no point in talking about these things now. The location of the heavenly tomb had been found by the grave god, which meant that the grave god was about to fuse with the other half of the heavenly tomb. It's time for this poor monk to set off. At that moment, the monk said. Monk. I'll go with you. Ping Shiren also stood up. Stay in this astrolabe and wait for Denglong to wake up. With your current strength, you'll just die in vain if you go. You might even become the grave god's food, the monk said. But can you win if you go? Ping Shiren frowned. This poor monk can still delay it for a while. Monk Golden Lamp's expression looked fearless. He condensed an extremely thin thread from his spiritual power and penetrated Ping Shiren's soul, binding him firmly and chaining him together. Although the astrolabe also had restrictions set up by Denglong that could completely prevent Ping Shiren from escaping, Monk Golden Lamp still felt that it was safer this way. However, Jin Deng still felt that this double insurance would be safer. Monk. What are you doing? Ping Shiren tried to struggle. However, the monk had already made up his mind. His attitude was so firm that Ping Shiren couldn't imagine it. Say no more. If you dare to say another word, this poor monk will tie you up with the turtle shell bind. As expected, Ping Shiren obediently shut up. The monk predicted that with Ping Shiren's personality, he would definitely not be able to accept such a shameful position. After doing all this, Monk Golden Lamp felt that it was about time. He used distance shrinking to inches to leave this vast astrolabe where Denglong lived. Buddha said, "If I don't go to hell, who will?" The Golden Lamp monk knew very well that his battle with the grave divinity wouldn't last long. This battle was destined to be one where he would jump back and forth on the edge of hell. But in fact, the monk didn't think he needed to hold on for too long. He just had to wait until Ling Jinren's match was over. Who cared if he went to hell or not? That grave god would definitely die. In Jiudao He's exclusive waiting room for contestants, Wang Ling returned victorious. Next to him was a stack full of baby magazines. A prize of 1 million Sun Island dollars was a lot of money for Wang Ling. Participating in a competition was originally forbidden in the old Wang family, especially when it came with a prize. But it was a closed-door meeting this time, so it wasn't a big problem. Of course, the most important thing was that Wang Ling had used his own ability to win the competition. Thus, with Wang Ming's help, he had worked very hard to compress his battle strength to the same level as his peers. At least in terms of aura. It was the same, but to be honest, despite all the preparations he had made, Wang Ling actually didn't feel like he was participating. Because most of the people present were Grey Church disciples. As soon as they saw that he was their opponent, they would think of ways to torture themselves, and at the slightest disagreement, they would start thinking about fixing the match. And just like that, Wang Ling had directly entered the final hurdle. As for the battle of defending the arena, which was a competition of spirit, Wang Ling didn't think he had used his own ability. That person had fainted at the sight of the function in his head. Could he be blamed? It could only be said that it was a result of his lack of skill. Although Wang Ling now also felt that he had gone a little overboard. The competition clearly hadn't ended yet. But he was already thinking about how to spend the 1 million Sun Island dollars to buy Anwan a present. But for Wang Ling, this money was indeed like he had picked it up for free. There was no longer much suspense. Before Mother Wang had become pregnant with Anwan, Wang Ling had actually been a little resistant in his heart. He didn't know whether Anwan's birth would be another kind of disaster for the earth and the universe, but as the day of hatching approached, regarding the new member of the old Wang family, Wang Ling suddenly felt a different kind of emotion in his heart. Until the moment when he had come to Sun Island and decided to participate in the competition to buy Wang Wan a present, Wang Ling finally had a deeper realization. His attitude toward his upcoming little sister. He couldn't say what it was. But the joy he felt was the same as when he had seen the limited edition crispy noodle snacks. But now, for Wang Ling, there was a new problem. Now that he had 1 million Sun Island dollars, what should he buy for his sister? He didn't know what this little girl, did she like crispy noodle snacks? If she didn't, should he groom her? You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.